When I was married, my wife told me, if one day you find out that I cheated on you, don't forgive me. At that time, I didn't love her yet. I hurt her and she punished me. So when she brought home her beloved, I threw away the heart-shaped gift, turned around and left, then asked a lawyer to draft a divorce agreement for me. That day was our wedding anniversary. I came home early to surprise her. Who would have thought that when I opened the door, I'd see the two of them hugging on the sofa? Liu Ruyan was completely calm. Why did you come back? Flashed through my head. Wasn't that a business trip? What's going on here anyway? I gritted my teeth and forced myself to speak, but Liu Ruyan answered me in a slow and anxious voice. I allowed him to take a bath. I heard in response, does it bother you if you really believe? Liu Ruyan, do you even realize that you should find a better excuse? Why is that suddenly wrong? I retorted. I asked you directly, don't forget. You are a rich mistress, Liu Ruyan, and you have handled everything perfectly. Liu Ruyan, by the way, this is my home. Who do I want back? What business is it of yours anyway? I turned to her lover. Aren't you just a parasite here? If I hadn't dragged you into this company back then, who do you even think you are now? But Liu Ruyan, as soon as our relationship began, she herself took me to meet her mother. We fell deeply in love then. We received her family's blessing. Later, her mother became seriously ill. She then pulled me towards the bed with tears, begging for help. She wanted me to take on all the responsibilities of running her company. For this, I had to completely give up my own dreams and plans. I went to Liu City to conduct business and develop business for Liu Ruyan. For the sake of lucrative contracts and signing agreements, I spent countless evenings in hospitals and at heavy feasts. Due to constant travel and irregular meals, my old stomach ailment got worse and worse. In those rare moments, Liu Ruyan would cry in the face of difficulties and tell me how she was going through it. I didn't need that kind of money for free, and I never wanted to manage someone else's empire. I just wanted to be healthy and live peacefully next to the person I loved. Yifan, her lover, then said, in my eyes, everything else is not important at all. All these riches aren't worth your little finger, but now, and this man dares to say such things to my face. I silently turned around and headed for the exit, but Zhang Yida, the lover, suddenly blurted out something unnecessary. What about Mr. E? What if Mr. E doesn't believe in our sincerity and innocence? What if he comes out of here now and starts telling everyone all sorts of nonsense? I'm afraid our reputation will be completely destroyed. He turned to me and added respectfully, Mr. Yi, please understand our situation. I hugged Liu Ruyan just like an old friend, believe me. From the outside, it was funny to watch Zhang Yida's obvious panic. Liu Ruyan immediately pinched his arm, pulling him back. Don't be afraid, Yifan. If he dares to say anything unnecessary, I will quickly deal with him, she said as if threatening me. Then she looked back at me and spoke. If it weren't for me, Liu Ruyan, you would never have been in this company and in this position. Realizing the futility of arguing, I decided it was best to remain silent. I simply looked at her bitterly and nodded toward the exit. The main thing is to just be happy with your choice now. After these words, I confidently crossed the threshold and walked out the door. I threw the gold star I was once given into the nearest trash can without regret. Liu Ruyan apparently has long since forgotten everything, and yet today is exactly our wedding anniversary. Remembering all this, I felt such disgust and bitterness that I drank too much again in the evening. Returning to the empty apartment, I fell off my feet and immediately fell into a dead sleep. I managed to sleep until midnight, until the silence of the empty room finally weighed down on my shoulders. However, I didn't find anyone near the cold bed wherever I looked. From the bathroom came those same ambiguous sounds made by Liu Ruyan. Hee, tomorrow will definitely be a reward for us, you can be sure of it, sounded in the darkness. You are much better than my official husband, I thought, standing in the same place with my eyes wide open in shock. Until the very end, I couldn't believe that Liu Ruyan was capable of secretly calling other men in the middle of the night. Having heard such ungrateful and cynical words, I burst into the bathroom in a rage and made a huge scene with Liu Ruyan. I used to think he'd feel guilty, but who would have thought Liu Ruyan would be completely indifferent to my emotions? During that memorable period, he and I spent a whole week in cold and alienation. It wasn't every day after work that I rushed out of the house and went wherever my eyes led me. At a major annual company meeting, he ostentatiously chose Zhang Yidu as his main partner. I ordered these partners to be investigated in order to gather detailed information about Zhang Yida's past and true identity. All I could do was watch this whole circus from the sidelines, powerless. After which I had no choice but to try to drown out the mental pain with liters of alcohol. It was as if she was waiting for me to get completely drunk and barely be able to stand on my feet. On my way to the toilet, I accidentally noticed the silhouettes of Zhang Yida and Liu Ruyan, secluded in the semi-darkness. She was wearing a white skirt with a belt, which in her haste was even torn. We had a terrible fight about this, but Liu Ruyan once again showed complete indifference to my feelings. In the end, he demonstratively left with this Zhang Yida. I'm sick and tired of these endless scandals that suck all the life out of me. Then I took the initiative myself and demanded that our employment and family contract be temporarily terminated. Liu Ruyan, we have truly loved each other for so many long years. I just physically can't stand the sight of you giving your love to someone else. Let's just cool off a bit and live separately to think things through. But Liu Ruyan categorically refused to acknowledge the obvious, insisting that she, Yi Fang, and Zhang Yida were just old friends. In an attempt to calm me down and prove her honesty, she even transferred Zhang Yidu to work in a remote branch. After that, he began to return home on time every evening, and it naively seemed to me that Liu Ruyan had truly come to her senses. However, this time the apparent idyll lasted less than a month. He returned to his old habits that same night without any remorse. Later, I happened to watch a recording of Liu Ruyan's public speech. As soon as Zhang Yidu was brought back to the main office, he immediately started openly flirting with others right in front of me. That day, I finally and irrevocably understood. This man never truly loved me. Without another second's hesitation, I boarded the first plane to fly away from this nightmare and immediately fell into a deep sleep. During the flight, I had a strange but very clear dream. I thought back to our student years, to the times when we gradually transformed from simple friends into lovers. We got married right after graduating from university, and I sincerely believed in our happy future. Since then, 7 whole years of life together have flown by. For a long time, I was sure that I would love Liu Ruyan until the end of my days. It seemed to me that it was forever, but now there is no trace left of the previous fairy tale. It was just a dream. A sharp jolt from the plane brought me out of my reverie, and I woke up. This whole family life turned out to be a complete lie, and those 10 years given to Liu Ruyan were just an illusion. I gave her the best years of my youth, from 18 to 28 years old. And finally, this nightmare dissipated, and I returned from my long business trip. It had been half a month since my arrival, and the company suddenly decided to throw an official welcome party for me. Zhang Yida, who had arrived late from the mountains, was already sitting at the festive table. And of course, he sat languidly in the most honorable place, right next to Liu Ruyan. There was a deliberately left space between them, as if to emphasize their connection. If this had happened earlier, my heart would certainly have started beating with jealousy and resentment. But now I could only smile bitterly and indifferently to myself. I silently found the first available free seat at the very edge, sat down, and from then on didn't utter a single word the entire evening. All those weeks while that long business trip lasted, everything that had once connected us was finally dying inside me. I've already understood everything for myself, and now I don't care at all about her antics. Zhang Yida suddenly stood up from his seat and said sweetly, "Mr. Yi, you are truly the mainstay of our company. Such large-scale and successful cooperation took place largely thanks to you. You deserve at least half of the credit for this success. It gives me great pleasure to raise this glass to your talent. Thank you for bringing such colossal profits to the company." And after that he defiantly threw out, "Come on, answer me." I slowly raised my head. I had done all this and no one else. "You can sit back down in your seat," I added, although I felt disgusted even being near him. Liu Ruyan immediately frowned visibly, clearly dissatisfied with my cold tone. "Ida makes a toast in your honor, and you sit there and don't even move," she said indignantly. "Stop acting so provocatively with him, otherwise I will stop standing on ceremony with you." I just looked at her calmly, realizing how short-sighted she was. "I just took some stomach medicine anyway. I absolutely can't drink alcohol." "Who are you trying to lie to?" Liu Ruyan demonstratively refused to believe my words. "You just made up that excuse on purpose, knowing there was a holiday party tonight, right?" I sighed heavily, silently picked up my chopsticks and turned away. I was just going to eat in peace to at least somehow satisfy my hunger. Liu Ruyan slammed her palm on the table in anger. "Yi Fang, are you deaf? They're speaking to you in Russian. Stop pretending to be sick. A couple of drinks won't hurt you. You wouldn't dare refuse to drink to my success, would you? If you don't have one right now, you can pack your things and get out. Tomorrow, you don't even have to show up at the company's door if you don't care about the team so much. And everyone around knows very well who is responsible for this company being able to survive to this day." But I couldn't do anything about it anymore, bitterly realizing that Liu Ruyan would never appreciate my efforts. Instead of making excuses, I unexpectedly laughed loudly and pulled out a pre-prepared statement from my pocket. I'm not going to drink with you anymore and put up with this circus. Here's my resignation letter. And you can be sure, from today on, we have nothing more to talk about. Hearing my words and seeing the paper, Liu Ruyan froze for a moment in the middle of the hall. Her gaze reflected pure incomprehension and habitual ingratitude. She apparently was confident until the very end that I, as always before, would obediently compromise. But at that moment, all the past grievances and words of warning clearly surfaced in my memory. If you are going to break this connection completely, you need to do it loudly, otherwise everything will lose its meaning. I resolutely got up from the table and headed for the exit, but Zhang Yida suddenly brazenly grabbed my hand. He tried to pretend that he wanted to stop me, but he leaned over and whispered quietly right in my ear. His tone was filled with poisonous irony. Wow, what a perceptive and strict nature your wife has. This disgusting sight made me so twisted with anger that I pushed him away sharply. There was a momentary flicker of fear in his eyes, but it was immediately followed by a false glimmer of hope for sympathy. Zhang Yida waved his arms dramatically, was frightened by my pressure, and awkwardly fell straight to the floor. Liu Ruyan was furious at what she saw and even began to shake with anger. She ran up to me and pushed me back with all her might, protecting her pet. When the noise died down, everyone else hurried out of the room, leaving the two of us to deal with the aftermath. Liu Ruyan stood before me, pale with anger and literally seething with hatred. What the hell are you trying to achieve? And this is right in front of so many people. Are you so eager to completely destroy my face and make me look like a fool? I just chuckled bitterly in response to her hysteria. Doesn't it really occur to you yet how much you're disgracing me with your behavior? Why don't you ever think about my dignity when you publicly embarrass me in front of that gigolo? I threw angrily in her face. And if you don't like my tone now, then blame it solely on your precious Ida. I've told you 1,000 times that I have nothing in common with him, she continued to insist. You can't be so petty and make a scene out of nothing. But I could no longer contain the anger that had accumulated over the years towards her, because I had no more strength to endure it. I was disgusted by the very thought that my legal wife was messing around with another man around the clock. I simply can't stand these impudent upstarts who do nothing but constantly provoke me. Liu Ruyan stood motionless for a long time after my words, stunned by such directness. Finally, he slowly opened his mouth and forced out, I used to think you didn't care at all. Before, I actually pretended that I didn't care, just so as not to ruin the relationship. But in any normal situation, a person with adequate thinking would not act like this. In such circumstances, any sane husband would be outraged. Of course, except for me in the past, who turned a blind eye to everything for the sake of the illusion of family. Now I really don't care because I don't feel anything for you anymore. I'm sorry, but that's my position. After some time of tense silence, I broke the silence. I'll officially hand you the divorce agreement. Don't forget to sign it. Liu Ruyan's eyes clearly showed a mixture of wild anger and deep awkwardness. Do you even realize what nonsense you're spouting right now and what you're throwing around? I heard in response. I took a deep breath, looked her firmly in the eyes and nodded. Liu Ruyan, let's finally get a divorce and end this circus. Liu Ruyan stared at me with a heavy, angry gaze, not believing what was happening. It took a long time before the corners of his lips suddenly twitched into a creepy grin. Yifan, don't forget yourself, you're just an ordinary sales manager in my company, he said with disdain. If it weren't for me and my company, who would need such a worthless and empty person like you? I just wearily shook my head at these words, turned around and silently walked towards the exit. Don't forget how you yourself once begged me to marry you, I heard after me. Just be careful not to bite your elbows and regret it when we finally get divorced. Liu Ruyan's voice continued to sound furiously behind me, but I no longer cared. After that evening, Liu Ruyan didn't even come home to sleep for a whole week. All this time, he openly spent time with his favorite Zhang Yida. Fresh photos of them hugging and kissing immediately appeared on their new social networks. Their faces shone with feigned happiness and tenderness towards each other. Someone from their circle even left a hypocritical comment. Congratulations to my brother on the beginning of a new happy life. I simply turned off my phone, completely isolating myself from this toxic noise. Taking the papers out of my bag, I placed the completed divorce agreement on the table. The next morning, I went to the company office first thing to officially submit my leave application. I understood perfectly well that I had long since lost any real power or influence in this company. The procedure went surprisingly quickly, and I received my application signed without any problems. The HR director didn't even ask any unnecessary questions, immediately signing the required form. I no longer had to wait for the contract to officially end or endure humiliation. I was leaving on my own. A little later, Liu Ruyan threw another complaint in my face. Yifan, you are a man of your word, so why are you acting like this? Although at the same time, she herself publicly stated that she would reject any of my applications at her own request. You've almost played yourself out, Yifan. Otherwise, I won't pay you a single penny after the divorce, he continued to threaten. Get out of the Liu group of companies if you're so proud. Your words make me feel cold, but at least I'm happy without you, I thought at that moment. In response to all these threats, I simply shrugged my shoulders indifferently, took out the document, and left it in a visible place. I am resigning from this office once and for all, without the right to return. This time, to my surprise, Liu Ruyan agreed to resign very easily and quickly. Apparently, he sincerely believed that without company, I would disappear and crawl back on my knees. That night, I slept like a log, feeling absolute inner peace for the first time in years. I no longer cared how Liu Ruyan felt after the performances. I was no longer at all concerned about his mood swings, tantrums, or whims. The problems, ups, and large-scale mistakes of someone else's company no longer affected me in the slightest. However, early in the morning, this silence was suddenly broken by the insistent and loud ringing of a mobile phone. As soon as I answered the call, Liu Ruyan's irritated and commanding voice came from the speaker. Yifan, what the hell is wrong with you again? He shouted on the other end of the line. In a few days, you have to personally sign off on a crucial project you were responsible for, so get back to me quickly. You better show up on time if you don't want serious problems later. I listened to his screams in silence, gradually coming to my senses after he finally finished scolding me. Well, what a noble gesture from Mr. Liu, I said with a fair amount of sarcasm. If my memory serves me right, I officially submitted my resignation and resigned yesterday. You yourself agreed to resign, so what connection do I have to this project? Liu Ruyan once again lost his composure and burst into furious shouts. I warn you, do not force me to act harshly and use force, even though I have signed your resignation. The official handover procedure has not yet been completed, so you are obliged to hand over everything. If you don't show up at the office right now, I have every legal right to sue you. I won't fall for these empty threats anymore. I don't give a damn about your pressure. If you were really serious about my dismissal, you should understand the absurdity of your demands. I'm not going to waste any more time on empty arguments and self-talk. Not wanting to continue this circus, I simply hung up the phone without a word. After that, I packed all my luggage, finally preparing to say goodbye forever to the house in which I had lived for 5 whole years. As soon as I stepped out the door, Liu Ruyan's familiar car appeared in the distance, arriving at the house on time. Why are you lugging your things around? Where are you going? He asked with a completely blank expression. Come on out and go rest, although Liu Ruyan's brows furrowed even more in irritation. I've already told you about all this 1,000 times, but you are deaf to other people's words. Do you even know what time it is? Do you still have any desire to go anywhere and travel? Think you can just give up, hurry up to the office, and report back before the end of the afternoon? I already have a huge number of unresolved problems hanging over me, and you're setting up a kindergarten. I understood perfectly everything he was saying and just nodded wearily in response. But in my heart, I didn't care anymore, while Liu Ruyan confidently stepped inside, without even thinking about what was happening. Over the past few days, I've been rechecking each file several times, making sure everything is perfect. You hang around the house all day long, not being of any use. Aren't you ashamed to look at this mess and not be able to imagine what a proper cleaning should look like? Having thrown out a couple more caustic phrases, he didn't even linger and immediately left. I understood perfectly well that this was our last conversation. Apparently, he was in such a hurry that in his haste, he didn't even notice the divorce agreement lying right in plain sight. I stood absolutely still and silently watched his car drive away. The plane finally took off and landed safely, and with it our dead marriage finally collapsed. As soon as I left the airport terminal, a young man in a light tracksuit walked quickly towards me. Hello, you are Mr. Yifan, aren't you? He asked politely. I was specially sent by the company to meet you and deliver you safely to the place. Thank you very much for your concern, and let's not be formal, just call me by my name, I replied with a smile. I nodded to him in a friendly manner, sincerely appreciating such a warm attitude in a foreign land. Ha ha ha, great, I understand you, Yi Fangji, he responded happily. My name is Shen Yuchu, and I will be your new assistant on this project. I look forward to your guidance and valuable advice in my future work. We decided to grab a bite to eat at a cozy restaurant nearby, and before ordering, Shen Yuchu politely stood up to wash his hands. At that moment, the pocket vibrated again. Liu Ruyan was calling insistently. At first, I just wanted to hang up, but the phone kept ringing and I reluctantly, very slowly picked it up. Yi Fan, what the hell are you doing and what's the meaning of this? Came from the speaker. Why haven't you shown up for the important meeting yet, and where have you been? Do you really think that after leaving the Liu group of companies, you'll turn into a useless street mouse? I remained completely calm. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Liu, but I can handle this myself. I have no idea where he always got this blind, unfounded confidence in his own rightness. Perhaps it was precisely thanks to such false charisma that he was once able to easily win the hearts of gullible shareholders. But I wonder who ultimately won today's victory and took this lucrative status for themselves. I spent the whole night drinking strong alcohol, enjoying this quiet moment of liberation and reckoning with the past. We won so many difficult projects together, and now it's all been crossed out and we've finally parted ways. Considering my experience and the salary offers I receive, I can easily find a new good job at any time. You think surprisingly sensibly and pragmatically, the interlocutor noted. If you want to leave, go yourself. I don't intend to pay you any additional financial compensation, Liu Ruyan continued to press. Listen here, I interrupted him mid-sentence, losing the last remnants of my patience. I fully comply with all conditions and act strictly within the framework of the employment contract we signed. What dose of this nonsense must I swallow today to please you? Liu Ruyan on the other end of the line finally lost his temper and shouted, Yi Fan, finally turn on your brain and start thinking clearly. You're not a boy anymore to throw such childish tantrums. Look at yourself from the outside. In the end, you just completely lost your mind. I once picked you up, gave you a normal life and a position, and you. Now I'm just disgusted and ashamed of your behavior and what you've sunk to. You still have one last chance to come to your senses and publicly apologize before it's too late. Otherwise, later, when you're left on the street with nothing, don't you dare accuse me later of not warning you. It's so funny how far I've come. I'm honestly too lazy to waste my time on this empty chatter. It would be better if you looked in the mirror at the person you've become. I was tired of listening to this nonsense and just silently put the divorce agreement in front of the camera. Look, don't forget to put your signature. I don't need anything else from you. Liu Ruyan's tone became icy. Have some conscience, there should be a limit to everything. Stop making this stupid joke already. My heart has exhausted all its limits of patience and forgiveness for you. But even now, when everything had collapsed, he continued to stubbornly console himself with illusions. This man sincerely believed until the very end that the divorce I mentioned was just a momentary outburst of anger. I'm not joking in a single word. I've had a new life and a new job for a long time now. And I will never return to your house and your company again. Either we formalize the divorce in a civilized manner, or don't ever dare call me or contact me again. Liu Ruyan's enraged shout came from the phone. You changed jobs and quit. Why didn't you even deign to discuss it with me? Don't you need this house we built together anymore? Finding myself in an empty room, I couldn't help but smile bitterly at his words. Was there anything left in your own heart for this house other than falsehood? Liu Ruyan, stop clinging senselessly to what is long dead and beyond saving. If I were you, I would have silently signed the papers and agreed to this divorce a long time ago. Liu Ruyan's tone suddenly turned cold again. 5 years of marriage. You talk about divorce so casually, as if throwing away something. Who do you even take me for? This conversation made me so angry that, fortunately, without thinking for another second, I simply hung up. There was no longer any desire to waste my nerves on these senseless and empty arguments. When the night came into its own and the storm died down, Zhang Yida had been sleeping soundly next to him for a long time, while Liu Ruyan lay silently in the darkness, staring at the ceiling. The same nagging question kept running through his head. Why couldn't he fall asleep? I remembered the very day when Yi Fan first announced his divorce and rushed home in a rage. Then he actually found that very ill-fated agreement on the desk. The content of the document was extremely simple and short, a mutual waiver of claims and an official divorce. Yifan then packed his things and left, naively believing that his husband would come to his senses and run to bring him back in a couple of days. He had always done exactly this before. He ran after her, trying to fix everything and beg for forgiveness. But weeks had passed, and the only response was a deaf, icy silence. Yifan hadn't even moved in his direction. Overwhelmed by a strange premonition, Liu Ruyan picked up the phone from the table with trembling hands and opened the messenger. There was absolutely nothing on his personal profile and friends' feed, a void. There was only a cold horizontal block line where his avatar should have been, and he sat up abruptly in bed. Frantically trying to send a message in the chat, he discovered with horror that the red exclamation mark of an error looked too vulgar and scary. Liu Ruyan slowly looked up at the empty walls of the cold bedroom. The realization of his own ingratitude and failure overwhelmed him. He had ruined everything with his own hands again. In a complete panic, he immediately tried to call Yifan, hoping that it was some stupid mistake. But a soulless, mechanical voice came from the speaker. "Sorry, the number you dialed does not exist or is temporarily blocked." Liu Ruyan slowly lowered the phone, feeling the last thread inside him being cut off. Until that moment, he refused to believe what was happening and to think that it was serious. Only now did it finally dawn on him. Yifan really was determined to divorce him. A distraught Liu Ruyan began frantically calling his acquaintances, traveling to countless places in search of her husband. But no one around had any idea where I had disappeared to and where I was now hiding. Sitting alone in the huge empty office, Liu Ruyan desperately felt cold and sad. At that ominous moment, the phone vibrated again, and Zhang Yida's name appeared on the screen. He mechanically dropped the call, but the annoying device immediately rang again. Having dropped the second call, he was about to turn off the phone completely, but on the third call he finally broke away and answered. "What more do you want?" he barked so loudly that the person on the other end of the line fell silent in fear. Having come to his senses a little, the courier hesitantly spoke the memorized phrase into the receiver. "Sorry to bother you, MS. I mean Mr. Liu, an express delivery has arrived in your name. Is it convenient for you to accept and sign the documents right now? It's urgent," the courier clarified, causing Liu Ruyan to frown in irritation. "Yes, I'm right at the gate of your private villa. Can you come out?" "What delivery? I'm incredibly busy right now. I don't have time for that." "Who even sent this package?" "Okay, screw it. Contact me tomorrow." The messenger replied insistently. "This express delivery was personally sent to you by Mr. Yifan." Hearing this name, Liu Ruyan suddenly jumped up from his chair. "Stay right there, don't go anywhere, I'm coming back right now." Forgetting all caution, Liu Ruyan raced his car through all the streets, completely ignoring the red traffic lights. But when he flew up to the gates of his village, he only ran into the courier, who was already leaving after finishing his work. He blocked the courier's path with a scream, breathing heavily and in absolute shock. "What do you mean the package was received? How come it's already been signed for?" he wondered. "But your own husband just came out to the gate in person and picked up the documents, signing them," the courier replied. "What husband? What are you even talking about? I'm not married to just anyone," Liu Ruyan exclaimed, to which the courier shrugged. "This young man introduced himself as your husband and took the box." These words caused everything in Liu Ruyan's head to completely turn upside down and freeze. Forgetting everything, he flew into the house like a whirlwind and began screaming wildly from the threshold. "Zhang Yida, where are you? Zhang Yida, get out of the bathroom quickly," he shouted. Ida, frightened by such a crazy pressure, in a panic tried to frantically flush what he was holding in his hands down the toilet. He frantically tried to destroy the evidence, watching as the water carried it away into the drain. But the next second the bathroom door swung open with a bang from a powerful kick. Liu Ruyan flew up to him in 2 steps and roughly snatched the treasured box right from the hands of the trembling Zhang Yida. Inside were a multitude of neatly folded photographs, and the very first one was of me in my school uniform. Here I am, running under the bright sun in a simple tracksuit, captured in the best moment of my youth. And here is a young man, already grown up, dressed in a strict official uniform. Serious, collected at work, in a perfectly tailored suit. Every detail, every photo was taken with meticulous care. All these years, Yifan quietly and devotedly documented my every step. It became clear that each of these countless photographs was imbued with pure, sincere love. In the past, there seemed to be an invisible golden halo of warmth shining around me, which he so thoughtlessly trampled. Liu Ruyan's hands began to tremble slightly as he began to look through the photos one by one. Each new movement of his fingers became more and more feverish, and uninvited tears were already glistening in the corners of his eyes. When Liu Ruyan reached the very last photo at the bottom of the box, he froze abruptly, as if struck by lightning. It turned out to be that very ill-fated photograph, where Zhang Yida and Liu Ruyan were captured together on that ill-fated bed. At that moment, his gaze accidentally fell on the back of the photo, where neat lines of text were visible in black. It was that same familiar handwriting of Yi Fan's that he would recognize among thousands of others. Liu Ruyan, did you really have even a minute to spend with me? How sorry I am now. During my time working at the corporation, I suddenly discovered by chance that the true identity and past of this Shen Yuchu seemed to be much more complicated than we thought. And it's not even about his laudatory letters to the company's top management. There's something more behind it. Observe how his colleagues in the department treat him. This may be the only clue you have. Shen Yuchu was always hanging around me, as if trying to attract all my attention. He even constantly took the initiative and persistently invited me to eat together. We went home together after work, which immediately caused unnecessary rumors and gossip to spread around the office. Understanding the ambiguity of the situation, I could only try my best to stay as far away from Shen Yuchu as possible. But I had long ago realized that Shen Yuchu himself had also clearly detected something strange and suspicious around us. That evening, after I finished work, Shen Yuchu suddenly blocked my way right at the exit of the office. "Why are you always trying to hide and run away from me, Yi Fan?" he asked bluntly. I stepped back slightly under the lamplight and replied, "Miss Shen, you have completely misunderstood me." "Stop calling me officially Miss Shen," he snapped back irritably. "Just call me Yuchu," Shen Yuchu added, his face visibly darkening at my cold tone. "I have accumulated a number of personal issues that I urgently need to discuss with you face to face." After these words, a heavy, slightly awkward atmosphere hung in the corridor. Luckily, this silence was suddenly broken by the sharp ringing of my mobile phone, making me jump. Without thinking or even looking at the screen, I simply swiped the screen and accepted the challenge. "Yi Fan, I'm right outside your company." Liu Ruyan's furious voice came from the speaker. "Where the hell are you?" he continued shouting on the other end of the line. I stood frozen in complete bewilderment right in the middle of the corridor of the new company. Liu Ruyan's voice was filled with icy fury. "Did you think that you would run away to another city and I wouldn't find you? Did you really think you could just hide from me like that?" I just frowned tiredly, rolling my eyes. This man still had absolutely no ability to admit his mistakes and let go of the situation. Shen Yuchu, who was standing nearby, watched this scene with astonishment and was in complete shock. "Who's calling you with such complaints?" he asked in a whisper. At that moment, Liu Ruyan also heard a female voice on the speaker and immediately began to seethe with jealousy. "Yi Fan, who are you hanging around with?" he screamed into the phone. I sighed heavily and answered him with utmost indifference. "What business is it of yours who I am with and where I am going? I told you in Russian, we are filing for divorce. And don't you dare come here again and make a circus." With these words, I mercilessly hung up. Shen Yuchu stared at me with eyes wide with astonishment. "Are you really planning to divorce your wife?" he asked quietly, to which I merely nodded. Yes, I wasn't even trying to hide it. "As you can see for yourself, this marriage is long dead." I must be a complete failure in love since I deserve to be treated like this, I thought bitterly. Shen Yuchu's face instantly revealed deep emotional pain and sincere sympathy. "You are an amazing person, Yi Fan. It's just that that woman was blind and completely unable to appreciate what she had next to her," he said softly. At that moment, a loud noise and commotion was heard outside the main entrance. "It looks like your faithful one finally broke through and came straight here to cause a scandal." I frowned heavily, feeling a growing headache, and reluctantly walked out of the office into the hall. Once I got there, I saw with my own eyes how an enraged Liu Ruyan was raging in the company hall. Local security tried unsuccessfully to stop him, politely telling him to calm down. "Dear woman, I mean citizen, if you don't stop causing trouble, we'll be forced to call the police," the security guard warned. "What police? I came here looking for my legal husband. What right do you have to kick me out?" Liu Ruyan yelled at the entire floor. While I was not around, he completely lost his human appearance from impotent rage. At this moment, Liu Ruyan finally noticed me standing at the entrance to the corridor and immediately rushed towards me. "You've had enough of these childish games," he said slowly, running up to me and grabbing my hand with a backhand. "Let's go home now." I frowned sharply, feeling only deep disgust at his touch. I jerked my hand out of his grip. Don't you dare touch me. You demand too much of me, even though you're not worth a dime yourself. You ran away from home like a coward, set me up, and even dared to ruin all my attempts to get my life back on track, and now you're asserting your rights. And who among us is going too far after this? You follow me to the car right now, otherwise don't blame me for my harsh methods, he said furiously, trying to grab me again. But at that very moment, Shen Yuchu stepped forward decisively and firmly blocked the path of the enraged invader. Listen here, you hysterical woman, I mean, citizen, hands off him. Who are you to give orders around here? Liu Ruyan's eyes, swollen with anger, widened in surprise and stared at us. Who the hell are you? I have nothing to do with you, and yet you dare wander into our company without any reason and assert your rights, he screeched. I'm the one who's going to ask you who you are and what's the basis for yelling here, Shen Yuchu retorted. Yi Fan, quickly stop this circus and come home with me, Liu Ruyan tried to command again. His mad gaze was directed straight at Shen Yuchu, trying to incinerate him on the spot. In every word he spoke, the familiar commanding notes and panicked anxiety were clearly audible. He's the main project manager at our company, and who are you? Why should I quit my job and come with you? I replied coldly. Liu Ruyan even began to choke from impotent anger, resembling a character from a cheap melodrama. He looked at Shen Yuchu from under his brows, his face turning cold as iron. I'm his legal husband and he's obligated to come with me, and you mind your own business, he snapped. Shen Yuchu only sneered disdainfully at his hysteria. I have no intention of backing down from such threats, I just know perfectly well who is right here. Brother Yi Fan doesn't want to go with you at all, so leave him alone, Yuchu intervened. Liu Ruyan clenched his teeth in hatred and looked at me again. Yi Fan, can't we just discuss this normally? Miss Liu, that is, citizen, I interrupted him. I sincerely don't understand what else we need to talk about, because right now everything in my life is going just great. I have a job I love, interesting tasks, and there are people around me who appreciate me. Please don't come here again and drag me into your dirty scenes, I snapped, causing Liu Ruyan to become completely stuck in a stupor. Yi Fan, I beg you, just give me 10 minutes, he pleaded with a changed voice. I just want to explain everything to you calmly, can't you? I don't have time for your explanations, I already have work waiting for me, and we were about to leave together with Shen Yuchu. Liu Ruyan clenched his teeth again in frustration, feeling the ground slipping away from under his feet. Well, great, simply wonderful, Yi Fan, you've truly outdone yourself, he snapped. Don't regret what you've done later, he added, after which he turned around and left, and I turned to Shen Yuchu. Sorry for this unpleasant circus and the ruined mood, I said guiltily. I'll definitely invite you to a proper dinner some other day as compensation. No problem, I don't pay any attention to such inadequate people, Shen Yuchu easily dismissed. I am simply sincerely disgusted by the arrogance and absolute tactlessness of this woman, that is, this man. Let's get out of here, let's sit somewhere quiet today, he suggested. By the way, I'll send you the name of a great restaurant in Messenger a little later when I go downstairs. Despite leaving, Liu Ruyan continued to stubbornly stand guard outside the exit. Yi Fan, don't forget I'm still your legal husband according to the law, a voice came after me. And don't even expect me to just sign your paper, while Shen Yuchu was looking at him angrily. Aren't you planning on filing for divorce? My colleague whispered to me in surprise, to which I only sighed heavily. Liu Ruyan was furious precisely because I had no intention of backing down, while he himself was terrified of signing. He simply did not want to accept the inevitability of this divorce until the very end. I shook my head wearily and thought, Liu Ruyan, why do you continue this senseless farce? Not wanting to continue this empty conversation, I politely said goodbye to Shen Yuchu and hurried away. That evening, I returned to my new temporary apartment completely alone, but I clearly underestimated the full extent of Liu Ruyan's obsession and madness. Somehow, he still managed to get the address of my new place. That same night, there was a wild knock on the door. As soon as I opened it, an enraged Liu Ruyan appeared on the threshold. How long are you going to play this childish game of hide-and-seek and run from me? He pounced on me with demands from the doorway. Liu Ruyan brazenly pushed me aside with his shoulder and unceremoniously barged into the apartment. You've had enough of these stupid whims and escapes. This circus has dragged on too long. Quickly pack your things and let's go home. I am generously ready to forgive you for all your recent antics. The nonsense I heard was enough to make me go crazy. A wave of deep bewilderment and absurdity washed over me. Liu Ruyan, are you out of your mind? Do you honestly think I know nothing about your exploits? You and your precious Zhang Yida deserve each other. Do you think I don't know what kind of crap you both are? And after this you dare to say that I am demanding a divorce just for fun and whims. We've been married for 5 years now, and I just don't want to make a dirty scene and ruin everything completely. That is why I decided to leave in English, completely alone. Is it really impossible to separate in a way that preserves at least a modicum of human dignity? Is it necessary to take the situation to such a point of madness and absurdity that it becomes impossible to stop? Liu Ruyan's expression was distorted with anger and looked simply repulsive. I have already repeated to you several times, I treat him exclusively as a brother. Well, let it be so, then I will be that very heartless brother. Brother will put my sister directly on the bed. Liu Ruyan's face instantly turned pale and pale at these words. I've had enough of trying to argue and negotiate about anything. I am extremely calm, although you apparently don't even notice it. I know you much better than you can imagine. Liu Ruyan, stop following me and getting on my nerves. Get out of here, Liu Ruyan. Get rid of your presence, it makes me sick. It must have been hard for you trying to sit on 2 chairs and run after 2 men at once. You better finally take care of your home and settle down, Liu Ruyan gritted through his teeth. Finally, he turned sharply and walked away quickly. This coming weekend, an unexpected invitation came from Shen Yuchu. How about we go shopping together tomorrow? My first impulse was to refuse immediately, but what Shen Yuchu added next made me seriously doubt it. Are you still hoping to get your ex-boyfriend back? I'm a little late in replying, but I still agree to meet. I collected my thoughts and went to the appointed place. As soon as I approached the main entrance of the shopping mall, I immediately noticed Shen Yuchu. At that moment, a furious, angry shout was heard behind me. You fan this action of yours. Turning around abruptly, I met Liu Ruyan's gaze. She flew straight towards us like a bullet, consumed by rage. Yifan, don't forget, we're still officially married. And you dare to walk around like this openly and flirt with other women. Do you even have a shred of conscience? I'm shaking with anger right now. Why are you even making a claim against me? Shen Yuchu retorted calmly, taking a step forward. Well said, we are adults and reasonable people. Liu Ruyan fell silent for a moment, but her gaze remained icy and fixed on me with a death grip. So you are so stubborn about getting a divorce solely because of this woman. I'm not going to make excuses to you, Liu Ruyan. Do you really think everyone around you is as petty and cowardly as you? Are you really asking why I'm leaving you? You know the answer perfectly well. Liu Ruyan was not at all offended by this. In response to the reproach, she only laughed cynically. So what? I deign to apologize to you. You'll still have to file for divorce, and you still won't get away from the fact that you're tied to me. Isn't this whole circus performance because of this girl? Yifan, you are a real traitor to our feelings. Liu Ruyan, don't you find what you're saying funny? I look at what's happening with a sober eye. I wonder which of us really destroyed our marriage. I don't care about anything else. The main thing is that there is no divorce. You are strictly forbidden from having any close relationships with other women. Liu Ruyan stepped closer and tried to grab my hand, but I quickly pulled it back, not allowing myself to be touched. My voice sounded extremely cold. I clearly said that I did not intend to get involved in any more showdowns with you. Before I could finish speaking, a familiar voice sounded right next to my ear. Ruyan, Mr. Yi, what an unexpected meeting. How many years, how many winters? I think you look extremely. Just look at these ambiguous and too intimate gestures of 2 people. I just smiled bitterly in response to this farce. Liu Ruyan, aren't you even a little ashamed of the words that just came out of your mouth? Liu Ruyan gently but firmly pushed Zhang Yidu aside. I just brought him here so that he could quickly get used to the work environment and get into the swing of things. Well, all I can do is grit my teeth and take this blow. And what do you think all these circus acts are achieving? I have absolutely no one to justify myself to. I cut him off mid-sentence. It's high time you and your sweet boy realized that you have nothing to do with me. Live as you know, this is your personal freedom. With these words, I turned around and left with Shen Yuchu. Liu Ruyan rushed after me from the left, trying to catch up. Yefan, when will you finally stop making this circus and getting on everyone's nerves? Would you like me to apologize to you? Would that be okay with you? Liu Ruyan, tell me, why did you even start all this? And what do you think I did that was so terrible? You know the truth deep down inside. I don't give a damn about him or any other women. At this moment, the question naturally flashes through your head. To what absurdity has all this reached? Can you even stomach this nonsense? Liu Ruyan hasn't even opened his mouth yet. Suddenly, Zhang Yida grabbed my hand. Effin, you really shouldn't be so angry, because it's really all my fault. I'm behaving terribly. My sister needs a reliable man who can take care of the home. And a faithful companion is nearby who can support her and comfort her in moments of emotional storm. If you really have any feelings for her, don't make things more difficult or put her in an awkward position. Just take care of her, cover her back in difficult times. And leave all the rest of the routine and chores to me. That would be right, wouldn't it? Just imagine this strange life for 3. Maybe in the end, everyone will even be happy. Just listen to this nonsense. What kind of pathetic philosophy is this? I just shook my head heavily, feeling the disgusting absurdity of what was happening. But before I could utter a single word in response, Liu Ruyan was the first to sharply pull her hand away from Zhang Yida. "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" he asked as he walked away. "Ida, you're already an adult. You should have at least some kind of filter in your head. Some things are simply unacceptable to say out loud, but you are simply obliged to understand this. Effin, stop acting and come home with me." Liu Ruyan finally turned his full attention to me, and an unusual, almost gentle note crept into his manner. "I am ready to meet you halfway and come back with you." "What about him?" a voice rang out from the side, while Liu Ruyan stood frozen in place, not moving an inch. The guy turned his head sharply towards the source of the sound, and undisguised rage flashed in his eyes. I smiled crookedly and shook my head, my voice clearly laced with caustic sarcasm. What a delightful, first-class performance unfolding right before us. It's simply incredible how such talent goes to waste and still hasn't shined on the big stage. A shadow of irritation and displeasure flashed across Liu Ruyan's face for a moment. He hesitated for a moment, then turned to Zhang Yide and gave a short order. "Ida, apologize to Ethan immediately." A look of genuine shock instantly appeared on Zhang Yida's face. "Why? For what?" "What do you mean no?" I said. "Go ahead and apologize now." Liu Ruyan's tone was ironclad and did not allow any objections or disputes. Zhang Yida's eyes instantly turned red from the tears of resentment that welled up. It seemed like another second, and he would burst into loud tears right there. "Little sister, do you really not love me anymore?" Liu Ruyan's stern face softened slightly at the sound of this voice. Watching this whole circus performance from the sidelines, I'm currently feeling sick and disgusted solely by Li Yizhen. I turned around abruptly and walked away, and Liu Ruyan rushed after me, desperately trying to catch up with me. At that very moment, Shen Yuchu, who had been constantly by my side, suddenly he blocked his way, standing like an insurmountable wall. "Get out of my way immediately." Liu Ruyan's face was distorted with wild rage. "Why should he? Shen Yuchu is always a welcome guest here." Looking over my shoulder, I saw the scene clearly, the two of them standing opposite each other as if crossing swords. This sight has already made me tired and angry. "Let's get out of here." "We have absolutely no reason to waste time on this circus," Shen Yuchu nodded in agreement. "Let's step away and take a leisurely stroll around the shopping center." Despite this, Liu Ruyan continued to stubbornly follow in their footsteps. Zhang Yida, angrily gritting his teeth, also did not lag behind and dragged himself along behind. "I'm already bored to death with this whole farce. Have a nice weekend, gentlemen," I said as a parting shot. "Yifange, don't pay attention to those two idiots, they just made a big mess of themselves." Shen Yuchu gently, almost weightlessly, touched my sleeve with his hand. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Liu Ruyan freeze right behind me. He was filled with impotent anger, his teeth were grinding with frustration. He clearly wouldn't be able to achieve his goal. With a sharp movement, I pushed away the hand of Shen Yuchu, who was trying to approach me. "Yifan, isn't that enough for you? I admit I made mistakes and behaved lousy in the past. Come home with me, I promise I'll break up with Zhang Yida right now." All of Liu Ruyan's sweet talk sounded false. Zhang Yida's face turned white as chalk at this moment. "Sister, are you serious?" The voice rang out into the void, but Liu Ruyan didn't even deign to turn around. "Just look me straight in the eyes and repeat it." The enraged Zhang Yida grabbed Liu Ruyan with a death grip. "Life and death, emptiness all around. Why should I pay you back for these 2 years? Now I don't need you anymore at all. Who do you even take me for? A consumable item to be used and then thrown away." "Shut up," roared the enraged Liu Ruyan. A heavy backhand blow landed straight on Zhang Yida's face. Zhang Yida staggered back, completely stunned due to the surprise and force of the blow. Frozen at the scene, I looked at it in shock, refusing to believe my eyes. "Are you really that heartless? I gave you the best 2 years of my life. It's not even a matter of gratitude for all your merits. I worked hard for you." "Liu Ruyan, you have to give me a normal explanation of what's happening." Liu Ruyan's face turned to stone, and his gaze became chilling. In a low, threatening voice, he said through clenched teeth, "Zhang Yida, I am giving you my final warning. Know your place and remember the chain of command. If you dare to mention this even once more, blame yourself. Don't expect mercy from me." The scene I saw didn't surprise me at all, everything was predictable. Chengran, this Zhang Yida is a young guy, hot and full of energy. He is very good at chasing women and pleasing them, but he is completely unaware of Liu Ruyan's true character. Perhaps at some point Liu Ruyan really liked him, but solely thanks to his unquestioning obedience. If he angered Liu Ruyan in any way, he would immediately show his cruel side and stop standing on ceremony. I understand perfectly well why Zhang Yida is now in hysterics. After all, his obsession with Liu Ruyan is based on more than just his good looks. More importantly, Liu Ruyan provided him with a well-fed, comfortable, and carefree life. After all, for Zhang Yida, Liu Ruyan is not just a partner, but a patron who raised him to the top. Without Liu Ruyan's support, he would instantly lose absolutely everything he had been striving for so long. That's why he will cling to Liu Ruyan with all his might, no matter what it costs him. Zhang Yida turned his hopeful gaze straight towards me. Yifan, since you don't love Zhang anymore anyway, why can't you just hand him over to me? What's it like trying to sit on two chairs and have affairs on two fronts? Since you have a new passion, why do you continue to cling to me and make scandals with me? In just a few sentences, he cleverly turned the entire essence of the conflict on its head. On the surface, his words sounded like self-pity, but in reality, he was secretly trying to paint me in the dirtiest possible light. Predictably, after such speeches, Liu Ruyan's face darkened and became worse than a cloud. I just chuckled. Do you even understand what nonsense you're talking about right now? Now your dear Zhuyan has become stubborn and flatly refuses to formalize the divorce, although I myself do not intend to fight with you. Why should I stoop to a showdown with a woman who has completely lost her mind? And then Shen Yuchu appeared in all his glory, effectively intervening in the proceedings. Let's get out of here, brother Ethan, don't waste your time on this circus. He intentionally said this with a mocking tone, causing Liu Ruyan's face to twist with anger. He wanted to rush after us, but Zhang Yida hung onto his arm with a death grip. You're not going anywhere, Liu Ruyan said through gritted teeth, giving him a chilling look. Zhang Yida, are you seriously trying to test my patience and drive me to the brink? Zhang Yida gritted his teeth furiously but still took half a step back, although the two of them remained in tense contact. Eventually, Zhang Yida was forced to submit and leave. He simply did not dare to completely break with Liu Ruyan, because deep down he understood his true situation very well. Once I got rid of Zhang Yida's company, Liu Ruyan seemed to regain his spirit and regain his freedom of action. From then on, every morning he would regularly appear at the door of my company, personally bringing me a fresh breakfast. And in the evenings, when the working day was coming to an end, he would patiently wait for me at the entrance downstairs with his invariable bouquet of flowers. Only now it dawned on me how the irony of fate brings everything back like a boomerang. When a woman begins to pursue a man so persistently, and such a striking woman at that, the picture looked like it had come straight out of some banal melodrama. Naturally, this immediately caused a stir in our entire office and became the main topic of gossip among colleagues. A stormy wave of all sorts of rumors and speculations immediately arose around us. When Liu Ruyan showed up once again under the office windows, I walked past him with my head held high, without even slowing down. A mixture of triumph and painful pride was visible on Liu Ruyan's face. Why did such a change suddenly occur in you, and you started singing differently? Liu Ruyan, enough of this circus, let's find some time and finally finish this marriage. I have long been cold towards this union. There is not a single emotion left in me towards our past. For 5 long years, I'm dead tired, our wise ancestors once said, a traitor once is never to be trusted again. Liu Ruyan froze in place, his eyes slowly turning bloodshot. Is there really nothing human left in you? Are you really that insensitive? We've been together for so many years, and you just throw words to the wind so easily. I just shook my head melancholically. Liu Ruyan, for all these 5 years, have you ever given me even a second of your sincere attention? However, why return to the past now? I no longer intend to prove anything. I once gave Liu Ruyan a whole bunch of chances to fix everything and turn back. But he chose to trample them and did not value what he had one bit. So stop running after me and making these scenes. This will only cause an even greater storm of disgust. You understand perfectly well that your persuasions no longer have the same power. You must be clearly aware of the consequences of all this. I didn't even try to hide the open threat that sounded in my words. Liu Ruyan's face instantly turned white, losing all its color. He categorically refused to believe what was happening because he was used to seeing me as a soft and pliable person. In the past, at the slightest hint of something like this, he would have immediately threatened her with divorce himself. Why on earth are you even bothering to interrogate me and ask questions? I had a long and calm conversation with him, but in response he only lowered his head and his voice sounded very quiet. Can't you give me a little more time? Yifan, I believe that even if our union is destined to fall apart, we need to part ways in a humane manner. I don't want to turn this into a crude farce. Can I really agree to this? Even though I know the answer perfectly well, I still refuse. Only those who are bound together by the chains of marriage are doomed to eternal torment, so I simply waved my hand and agreed to his condition. Over the following days, Liu Ruyan continued to pursue his line. Fresh breakfasts, mountains of flowers, and expensive gifts rained down every day. My desk quickly became covered with all sorts of bouquets and boxes of presents. Without thinking twice in front of my astonished colleagues, I demonstratively threw all these flowers and gifts straight into the trash can. It was a pity that Shen Yuchu appeared in front of me at such an inopportune moment, witnessing this scene. In a strange, mocking tone, he said, "Look, the real director of the drama and not me at all." Of course, Shen Yuchu intended to put an end to this. He was so angry that he simply couldn't understand how anyone could so foolishly squander what they had. Having thrown out this phrase as a last word, he turned abruptly and left. This mini-scene immediately attracted everyone's attention and became fodder for gossip in the office. Naturally, rumors of an affair immediately began swirling between us. Catching the meaningful glances of those around me, I could only smile bitterly. Stop grinning like little children. It's so easy to be influenced by others and let someone interfere in your life. Are you seriously afraid that I can somehow turn your life upside down? Shen Yuchu was nervously pacing back and forth, not noticing how he was becoming immersed in all of this. Wen Yan said a few words to me behind my back. Turning around sharply, I realized that I had once again reached a dead end and found myself in a hopeless situation. You understand perfectly well that I meant something completely different. Why this farce? Shen Yuchu was much more assertive and aggressive, while I was the stubborn bully. Ultimately, all such work squabbles and their results always end up on the manager's desk. If this makes anyone uncomfortable, let's just sit down and have an honest conversation, but don't make any false assumptions. Just as I was trying to find the first excuse to leave quickly, Shen Yuchu suddenly said, "Today's flowers are actually from me." I froze in place, looking at him in shock. "Seriously, you brought these for me?" This sudden frankness made me feel awkward, and I fell silent in confusion. "I'm sorry, everything is fine." Shen Yuchu waved his hand, pretending that nothing special had happened. "Remember once and for all, you can no longer let such a person slip through your fingers. And I will personally deal with this annoying person downstairs and send her to security. If you need help, just tell me. I have reliable ways to get rid of this stalker once and for all." As for Shen Yuchu's sincerity, I had no doubts about that. As soon as I left work, Liu Ruyan appeared on the horizon again. True affection doesn't just disappear, and my patience was running out. "What the hell do you need again? Do you even have any personal time?" I didn't even try to hide the open disgust frozen in my eyes. Liu Ruyan's eyes instantly turned red from the overwhelming emotions. "I was just sincerely trying to make amends for all my past mistakes and atone for my guilt. I didn't need your attempts at all, they only made me feel stupid tension." But Liu Ruyan stubbornly shook his head, refusing to back down. "There is no need for this. I categorically do not want our story to end so ingloriously. Give me just 1 month. If after this month you are still adamant about the divorce, I will sign all the papers. The main condition is that we eventually officially divorce, then I agree to everything." "Do whatever you want, I don't care." I threw over my shoulder and walked away abruptly. But the next second, Liu Ruyan grabbed my wrist with his fingers, stopping me in place. "Come on, let's at least have lunch together." My insides were clenched with nervous tension. After I had firmly decided to break up with him, I suddenly realized that Liu Ruyan's very presence was causing a strange storm of emotions within me. I felt uneasy even at the thought of being alone with him. "Spare me this," I said, jerking my hand out of his grip. There was a heavy, almost unbearable irritation in my eyes and on my shoulders, and Liu Ruyan was visibly upset. "I just want to sit with you for a while and have a quiet conversation. Please just promise me this, okay? I beg you, if you agree, I will fulfill my promise and sign the divorce agreement immediately." I sighed heavily. "Let's go." But instead of heading to the restaurant, Liu Ruyan turned into a large supermarket. "Let's go grocery shopping together." Liu Ruyan pushed the cart in front of him and I followed silently. Liu Ruyan didn't care about my silence and walked confidently ahead. As I glanced over the shelves of goods, I couldn't help but recall the first days after our wedding, when my stomach often acted up. Then you always found time to go to the store, buy everything you needed, and cook food for me yourself. At these memories, his voice suddenly became hoarse and broke. It turns out that so many years have passed since he finally lost sight of the person who loved him so sincerely and deeply. I remained completely silent, without experiencing any violent conflicts or pity within myself. It just seemed to me that there was no point in dredging up the past anymore. To give 5 whole years of your life to such a woman. How long had Liu Ruyan been shopping and carrying bags of food like this over the years? I noticed that our cart contained quite a few products that I have always loved. Does this mean that Liu Ruyan doesn't know me at all? Well, to be honest, I don't care anymore. When it was time to pay at the checkout, Liu Ruyan glanced at the total amount and couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Wow, I didn't expect the price of regular beef to go up so much. Do you never buy groceries yourself? I tried to throw out a routine phrase to at least somehow diffuse the tense atmosphere. But having barely opened his mouth, he immediately stopped and turned away. Luckily, I haven't been wasting any extra money lately. Liu Ruyan's face instantly turned to stone, and the atmosphere around him became even more tense. We drove in silence all the way home, not saying a single word until we got there. Finally, he broke the silence himself. Actually, you don't have to bother with all these expenses, because my own income is much higher than yours. I can't afford to accept this, and there is no need to. I rudely interrupted him mid-sentence. I only want one thing, to get a divorce as soon as possible. I have no desire to drag out this endless divorce process. Liu Ruyan fell into a heavy silence again. It looks like he's again trying to choose the most comfortable position for himself to simply run away from the problem. Escaping from an unpleasant conversation, Liu Ruyan immediately dragged whole bags of ingredients into the kitchen upon returning home. About 2 hours later, he placed 3 delicious dishes and hot soup on the table. Looking at this abundance, I did not feel the slightest remorse or gratitude. I have absolutely no appetite, and there was no need to do all this cooking. There are only 2 of us, we physically cannot eat that much food. It's okay, try to eat more. Liu Ruyan pretended not to care, continuing to fuss around the table. On the one hand, a real culinary crime, on the other, a gourmet's paradise, the ideal model wife in the role of a family member. But deep down I knew perfectly well that all this is just a beautiful but empty illusion. If even those who are masters at pretending to be loving are capable of this, then what can we say about everything else? While Zhang Yida felt completely at ease and relaxed, I sat on the sofa, not allowing myself to relax for a second. While Liu Ruyan was finishing cleaning the kitchen, he quietly came and sat next to me. Before Yi Fan could finish speaking, my eyebrows shot up in surprise, looking toward the study where the muffled sound of running water was coming from the bathroom. I couldn't help but frown. Was this woman really not planning on leaving today? Taking a deep breath, I stood up resolutely and stopped right at the bathroom door. Finish your bath and come out. Then I turned sharply, walked into the bedroom, and pointedly locked the door. However, just a couple of minutes later, someone started pounding loudly on the door, forcing it in. From the other side, Liu Ruyan's posthumously insistent voice said, "Yi Fan, I urgently need to tell you something. Please open the door." To which I coldly replied, "Fine, but I want to sleep and won't listen to you. Please let me in." Liu Ruyan was silent for a moment outside the door, and I just let out a tired sigh. How stupid of me to agree to all this yesterday morning. Early in the morning, Liu Ruyan was already busy in the kitchen preparing breakfast. When I entered the bathroom, I was surprised to notice that the number of tubes and jars of detergents had noticeably increased. Apparently, this man was determined to stay here for a long time. Feeling completely helpless, I just tiredly covered my face with my hand in front of all these household chemicals. Without thinking twice, I demonstratively swept the new bottles straight into the trash can in front of Liu Ruyan. But Liu Ruyan didn't even think about stopping. He simply took out new spare tubes from his bag. This surreal lifestyle had gone on for too long, and I felt deadly exhausted. Luckily, it was at this moment that Shen Yuchu came to my rescue. I had to spend the next few days on a business trip. A great opportunity to get together and at least temporarily escape from this whole nightmare with Liu Ruyan. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but smile and silently nodded to my thoughts. Returning home to an empty apartment, I discovered that Liu Ruyan was not at home. I immediately frantically grabbed my suitcase, but just as I was about to slam it shut, Liu Ruyan appeared on the threshold. "Are you trying to escape again?" His voice was reproachful. Escape? I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. This is actually my apartment. I can come and go as I please. Do you think I should ask your permission? I roughly pushed him out of the way. I have a business trip tomorrow. Pack your things and get out of here. Don't you dare stay at my house again. Liu Ruyan grabbed my wrist sharply. Are you really going on a business trip? Why didn't you tell me in advance? And why should I report to you? I pulled my hand away in irritation. Tell me, Liu Ruyan, did you always report to me before your trips? From the moment Zhang Yida appeared in our lives, Liu Ruyan completely stopped considering it necessary to warn me about his business trips. In the end, all of his business trips had long ago turned into banal meetings with Zhang Yida. A shadow of awkward embarrassment flashed across Liu Ruyan's face as I asked. However, he didn't have the courage to justify himself. When are you coming back? What difference does it make to you? Having said this, I turned around and headed towards the exit. He immediately blocked my path, and when I tried to go around him, he covered my suitcase with his hands in despair. I'm against it, you're not going anywhere. I sighed heavily and shook my head. Does he still not understand how stupid this looks? Believe me, I will never regret my decision. Do you think you can hold me back by force, stop me now, and then what? Bind me to yourself for life? Of course I can, he said stubbornly, flatly refusing to give in. He pulled me towards him sharply, hugging me tightly, and tried to kiss me, but I managed to move my head away in time. Everything inside me rebelled against it, and I pushed it away. Why are you doing this to me again? Blind rage boiled in his eyes. He hit me in the chest with both hands in the heat of the moment. I looked back at him with a cold, completely empty gaze. You know perfectly well the real reason for this theater. But he kept grasping at straws, trying to persuade me to change my mind. I walked around him silently, carefully pushing aside the luggage that was blocking my path. This time, Liu Ruyan didn't try to stop me anymore. As soon as I left the entrance, when I saw my father, he was sitting quietly on a bench, slightly hunched over, and his shoulders were shaking slightly. When I got to the hotel, I found a night message from Shen Yuchu on my phone. I'll pick you up at your house tomorrow morning, the text read, and I immediately sent him the address of my hotel. After putting my phone on silent mode, I went to bed and surprisingly slept soundly all night. In the morning, I was awakened by a phone call from Shen Yuchu. I'm already waiting for you downstairs at the hotel entrance. Come down, I'll get ready quickly. Okay, I'll be waiting. Having quickly washed myself, I picked up my heavy suitcase and went down to the hall. As soon as I stepped through the door, I immediately noticed Shen Yuchu standing at the hotel door, and Liu Ruyan, who was animatedly arguing with him. What the hell are you doing here anyway? I asked coldly, looking straight at Liu Ruyan. Liu Ruyan's eyes turned red with resentment, while Shen Yuchu's were filled with open hostility. I shot him a disgruntled glance. You said we were going on a business trip together. What the hell is he doing here? It's not my fault. This is our first time going on a trip together. Do you judge everyone by yourself and think everyone else is a liar? Liu Ruyan's face turned completely white. Meanwhile, Shen Yuchu silently shifted his gaze and casually handed me the car keys. You take the wheel. I'm not in the mood for driving today. Fine, whatever you say, I replied. Liu Ruyan, watching this scene from the sidelines, clearly wasn't enjoying it at all, and when our car pulled away, I pointedly didn't even glance in his direction. And why are you making such a public scene again? I was frankly curious to hear what Shen Yuchu, who had settled into the passenger seat next to me, would say. Looking at him, I asked him directly what was on the tip of my tongue. I arrived here early in the morning and immediately noticed this woman sitting in the hotel lobby. She rose up to meet me, a suspicious and tense expression frozen on her face. You definitely didn't spend last night under the same roof with him, I hope. What nonsense are you talking about? I snapped back irritably, explaining to her in detail the true picture of what was happening. Hearing my words, Shen Yuchu let out a sigh of relief and calmed down. What a good and sensible woman you are. Could this really be called love? I just shook my head skeptically. I'm just tired to death of all this madness. Shen Yuchu couldn't help but bite his lips slightly in frustration. The whole way, he quietly hummed a melody to himself, following the rhythm of the music in his headphones. He seemed to be in unusually high spirits. We finally arrived at the airport. There I immediately noticed several more of our colleagues from the company. A question involuntarily started spinning in my head. Are we really flying off to sign some kind of gigantic and especially important contract? My intuition told me that this trip was far from an ordinary business trip. Shen Yuchu only shook his head mysteriously in response to my questions. You will soon see and understand everything for yourself when we get there. This answer made me involuntarily smile, feeling like the hero of some kind of joke. However, I hoped to at least completely get rid of Liu Ruyan's annoying company on this trip. As soon as we stepped off the plane, some of our colleagues immediately went off somewhere. I tried to ask Shen Yuchu about his plans, but he grabbed my arm tightly. We don't need to go with everyone yet, they'll send a car for us a little later. I was a little confused by this conspiracy, but I didn't pry any further. True, there was so much uncertainty in the eyes of the remaining colleagues who saw us off that I felt uneasy. I was always a little uneasy about this kind of excessive secrecy. Luckily, not even a few minutes had passed when a representative official car smoothly braked in front of us. Having settled into the car, we drove for quite a long time until we finally drove far beyond the city limits into a quiet suburb. Since when have business issues and projects been discussed in remote suburbs? I sarcastically joked about whether he was accidentally going to sell me into slavery. Shen Yuchu just gave me a cheerful look. Worried about your worth? Don't worry, you're worth a lot, and besides, you don't talk much. Meanwhile, the car braked smoothly in front of the massive gates of a luxurious villa. Or rather, it was difficult to call it just a villa, more like an entire elite resort village. The surrounding landscape amazed me so much that I froze even before I had time to get out of the car. People were bustling everywhere, spreading trees grew all around and gardens were in bloom. The beauty was indescribable. Several smiling maids immediately walked quickly towards us. I was about to pick up my suitcase myself, but they politely took the bags from my hands. Shen Yuchu did the same, handing over the luggage to the staff without further ado. The whole thing gave me an even stranger feeling. This territory clearly belonged to the influential Shen family. I was placed in a room located next to Shen Yuchu's chambers. We had barely had time to put our suitcases away when Shen Yuchu announced his plans. I'm terribly sleepy, so I'll take a couple of hours nap first. Be sure to call me after lunch. I nodded in agreement and decided to take a short walk around the villa grounds, taking in the surroundings. After a while, I returned to the room assigned to me, intending to rest a little too. Perhaps it was because I hadn't been getting enough sleep lately due to all this stress. Either the nervous system was so overloaded with constant stress. But as soon as I lay down, I fell into a deep sleep, and when I opened my eyes, it was already pitch dark outside the window. I felt a slight fright. I quickly turned around and grabbed the phone lying nearby. But the mobile phone was not there. There was only one unread message on the screen, sent by Shen Yuchu. You're such a sleepyhead, let me call you that. You slept well, it's been 2 hours since I called, and as soon as the call connected, I immediately started apologizing. Sorry I overslept, you know, Shen Yuchu said jokingly. I'm just kidding, sleepyhead, I called you several times, he answered laughing, adding that the work process hadn't been disrupted because of me. Oh, this work, well, nothing to do. I rushed down the stairs to have dinner, feeling stranger and stranger. It increasingly seemed to me that I had come here not to work at all, but solely to keep Shen Yuchu company. Going down to the dining room, I was surprised to notice that the other colleagues who had arrived earlier had also already gathered around the large dining table. It seemed like they were waiting for me all this time, and now I had to awkwardly apologize to people. Sorry for the delay, gentlemen, my colleague was a little late. It's okay, we don't mind giving Mr. E a good rest. His colleagues immediately waved their hands. Meanwhile, Shen Yuchu was tapping his fingers on the tabletop with impatience. Come on, eat, don't delay, he said. And then he generously placed a juicy piece of pork ribs on my plate. Try it quickly, I personally chose this dish. I had barely sat down at the table when his unexpected concern and persistence literally shocked me. The colleagues around silently exchanged glances, perfectly understanding everything without unnecessary words. This made me feel even more ashamed and awkward in front of everyone. But when I accidentally shifted my gaze and saw Shen Yuchu's eyes literally shining with delight, like stars, I just didn't have the heart to refuse. Gritting my teeth and putting on a stony expression, I stuffed the ill-fated rib into my mouth. So how did you like it? Did you like it? Shen Yuchu asked me impatiently. There was a childish expectation of praise in his gaze. His genuine relaxation contrasted with everything that was happening. It seemed I had no choice but to chew in silence. I had to obediently open my mouth. Fortunately, the dish was only slightly oversalted. Although, to be honest, after the first bite, it seemed to me that I was not eating meat ribs at all, but a whole handful of pure salt. Natural doubts immediately crept into my head. Is his house really so short of money that they're even skimping on salt? If you've tasted it, eat more, Shen Yuchu said happily, scooping a new portion of ribs onto my plate. I sat with a stony face, maintaining a deep silence. It seemed to me that from such food, I would be pickled alive right there. To my great relief, after Shen Yuchu himself tried one piece, he didn't pile food on my plate anymore, but silently pulled the dish back towards himself. But this whole dinner party, she completely erased any boundaries of the usual understanding of relationships between colleagues. Right after dinner, one of the employees unobtrusively approached me. He smiled and asked, his expression inquisitive. "Mr. Yi, were you satisfied with your dinner?" he asked as I greedily took large gulps of water. My face at that moment was pale and distorted. I forced out something resembling a smile, trying not to cry from the excess salt in my mouth. "Well, it's quite peculiar," I muttered. My colleague was noticeably confused, looking at my strange and exhausted expression. "What's wrong, Mr. E? Are you feeling unwell?" "No, I'm just really thirsty." I waved my hand dismissively, desperately wanting to be alone. The nuclear salty taste was still in my mouth when Shen Yuchu suddenly materialized next to me with a bottle of mineral water in his hands. "Here, drink some more water." I awkwardly accepted the bottle, muttering words of gratitude. To be honest, it turned out downright tasteless, so let's be honest, you didn't like this dish one bit, did you? Shen Yuchu, demonstratively ignoring the stunned looks of his colleagues, confidently grabbed my hand. "Come for a walk with me, I haven't seen the night views here yet." I was about to pull my hand away and refuse, when suddenly my phone vibrated in my pocket. Looking at the screen, I saw an incoming call, but I didn't pick up the phone, even though the other end kept ringing. Apparently, I had absolutely no intention of answering this call. And just as I was reaching for the reset button, Shen Yuchu suddenly appeared next to me. "Who's so persistent?" Before I could even open my mouth, Shen Yuchu took the initiative without further ado and pulled my phone out of my pocket himself. "Hello, who's calling?" His voice rang out, addressing the person on the other end of the line. As soon as Liu Ruyan heard Shen Yuchu's voice on the phone, his own face instantly distorted with rage. "Why on earth are you even holding Yifan's phone?" Shen Yuchu only grimaced in disgust, clearly feeling disgust towards the caller. "Wait until I finish speaking and don't interrupt me with your hysterics. You're incredibly annoying. We're actually busy with business matters here. We have no desire to waste time on idle chatter." "What other business?" Liu Ruyan shouted. At such a late hour, what could a man and a woman be doing, alone together somewhere on the road? At that moment, the most terrible, unbearable images of what was happening were swarming in Liu Ruyan's head. And each of these fantasies made him writhe in inner pain and jealousy. Yifan is definitely having an affair with this woman, no need to be a fortune teller. "If you dare to encroach on my husband, I will never forgive you and will not give you life." But Shen Yuchu didn't care about his threats at all. "Forgive me, dear sister Liu, but he hasn't been your husband for a long time, so keep your complaints to yourself. You have no right to ask questions here at all. Why on earth do you dare talk to me like that? Don't delay us, I have no time to listen to your nonsense." "I've had enough of this circus," Shen Yuchu said and immediately pressed the end call button. After which, with a slight movement, he turned off the device completely. The last thing I needed was to give Liu Ruyan even the slightest chance to throw a tantrum and drive me crazy again. "Well, that's it, the phone won't bother you anymore." I couldn't help but smile looking at Shen Yuchu's satisfied face. "What are you so happy about?" "Of course I'm glad," Shen Yuchu answered easily. "You're just being too soft with her. You can't stand on ceremony or coddle such clingy people." I just sighed heavily, not arguing with him. Perhaps he was right in some ways. I felt incredibly relieved to be rid of that call. Thank you. I truly appreciated Shen Yuchu's help, as our chance encounters came at a surprisingly opportune time. This man was always there and selflessly helped me fight off troubles, whatever his true motives for doing so. I was still grateful for his support. Shen Yuchu nodded silently in response, smiling. There seemed to be something completely new and unusual in this atmosphere for me. We walked shoulder to shoulder, keeping silence, and leisurely strolled through the quiet garden around the villa. After some time, breaking the silence, Shen Yuchu suddenly said a strange phrase. "If only I had known about all this earlier. I should have started pursuing you much earlier." "What are you even talking about now?" I only heard half of it. "Just thinking out loud." Shen Yuchu coughed awkwardly, put his hands behind his back, and immediately deftly changed the subject. "By the way, you met this woman back in your student years, right?" "Right," I nodded. To be honest, I had absolutely no desire to remember the past or talk about Liu Ruyan. But Shen Yuchu seemed to be incredibly interested in this topic. He bombarded me with questions, never leaving my side. And at some point, Shen Yuchu suddenly blocked my path, looking straight into my eyes with a strange, shining gleam. "Are you aware of one interesting fact? Just imagine I once studied at the same university as you." I froze in surprise at this news. Shen Yuchu remained silent, but soon began to talk frankly about our student years. At first I thought about something else, but I quickly realized that we were talking about the wrong concert hall at all. But life with Liu Ruyan was more like a difficult and confusing drama. Shen Yuchu paused for a moment, then said quietly, "After so long, you finally talked about it. Do you even remember me, Fan? In fact, I deeply regret the past because I always liked you, but because of your blind love for Liu Ruyan, I did not dare to interfere. That's why I quickly packed my things and left to study abroad. And when I returned back years later, I found out that you were already married and thought that we would never meet again. Until my father accidentally brought it up and reminded me of you. Only then did it dawn on me how busy and unhappy you had been all these long years. For you, I didn't give a damn about my own career and future." Shen Yuchu spoke with frightening seriousness, admitting that he had specifically asked his father to arrange this trip. "You can't even imagine how happy and worried I was at the same time when I found out about your divorce. What I heard made me flush. I was completely shocked. For a second, the thought flashed through my head that my mind simply refused to process this nonsense. Shen Yuchu's sudden confession threw me off balance and seemed extremely ridiculous. "Yuchu, are you by any chance sick? Do you have a fever?" I even reached out to test the temperature of his forehead with my palm. "What are you doing?" Shen Yuchu grabbed my hand, his eyes wide. "I am absolutely healthy and sober. I just like you, I always have." He had already missed his chance many years ago, and this time he clearly had no intention of repeating the mistake, especially considering how persistently and dirty Liu Ruyan continued to hang around me. All this caused Shen Yuchu to experience an acute crisis, which he was fully aware of. At first, knowing how much I loved Liu Ruyan, he was wary of our reunion. That's why he took the initiative then and dragged me on this business trip away from him. Perhaps deep down, he was afraid that my softness would make me forgive Liu Ruyan again. He selfishly and desperately hoped that I would break with this past forever. Seeing my confused expression, Shen Yuchu sighed heavily. "Yifangji, you are incredibly dear to me. Please give us a chance, okay?" Such a humble and vulnerable tone on his part made me feel a pang of pity. I was so disoriented that I simply couldn't find the right words. Luckily, Shen Yuchu immediately gave me a friendly pat on the shoulder, diffusing the situation. "Okay, let's not think about that for now. Let's go for a walk and look around." I took a deep breath and the next few days flew by. Shen Yuchu dragged me to the most picturesque corners and entertainment areas of our mountain villa. At the same time, we carefully avoided any conversations about work and routine. And although this idle lifestyle seemed incredibly comfortable, a feeling of slight anxiety still lived inside me. But when I tried to share this concern with Shen Yuchu, he just waved it off. "Relax, we're just living for our own pleasure. After all, this is also part of our ongoing work. Evaluating everything from the inside is also a kind of task," Shen Yuchu explained. "This mountain villa is our next large-scale investment project. We don't just relax here, we experience everything ourselves as premium guests. If you look at the situation from this angle, it would have been a sin to miss the opportunity to enjoy the moment to the fullest. Okay, since all the cards are on the table and there's no point in arguing, you'll have to just relax and enjoy yourself in the next few days. And from our honest assessment of this resort, the success of the whole business will depend on it, so let's try, although the responsibility is serious. You can count on me. I will approach the assessment with the utmost seriousness and responsibility." Days when you don't have to think about routine work always fly by at an incredible speed. Without even realizing it, we had already spent more than half a month in this luxurious villa. It even began to seem to me that during this time my professional skills and grip had become quite rusty. My arms and legs were a little numb. Apparently I had been sitting under the beach umbrella for too long. By the way, isn't it time for us to get ready for our return journey? However, I never forgot for a second about my true role and goals. Shen Yuchu, busily sipping coffee, carefully cut the steak on the plate. I blinked in confusion. What happened? For some reason I have a bad feeling about this. "Oh, come on, nothing like that," I shook my head. "It's just that I think we've been sitting here too long. I'm afraid that you'll get so used to the relaxed life that you'll completely lose your shape in the city." "I've already gotten used to the hustle and bustle of our ordinary life." Shen Yuchu gave me a strange, long look. And I couldn't think of anything better to do than send a small piece of juicy steak into my mouth. Sitting on the very edge of this cozy shore, I clearly understood. Freedom is illusory and many difficult days still await me. I only heard half of his words and raised an eyebrow in surprise. Shen Yuchu asked sheepishly, "What's the matter?" and only smiled mysteriously and put another piece of meat on my plate. After he revealed his feelings, his behavior became much more bold and open. I tried to bring Shen Yuchu back to the harsh reality, but he didn't care at all about my arguments. Looking at his sparkling gaze and infectious cheerfulness, I often caught myself thinking that I could no longer be an ordinary person next to him. But we couldn't drag it out forever. Eventually, we reached the neighboring city and boarded a plane. We had barely landed when we received a call from the company's top boss. "Zio Yi, you've been pretty tired lately, so take a couple of days of well-deserved rest," he said softly. It was decided to temporarily postpone this important project until the end of the holidays. To be honest, talking to the boss was a little embarrassing and awkward. After all, I spent the entire fortnight essentially in a romantic relationship with his own son. Returning home and inserting the key into the lock, I took a deep breath in front of the closed door. Apparently, Liu Ruyan was already here. As soon as I opened the door, I saw him sitting on the sofa in his lounge clothes. He was watching TV with a soft smile on his face, but when he noticed me, he immediately jumped to his feet. "You're finally back," and all my good mood evaporated in an instant. "Why the hell are you still hanging around here?" Liu Ruyan looked at me with resentment. "I was just waiting for you to return, but you stubbornly ignored my calls. I was already afraid that you would decide not to come back at all, but even if that were the case, I would still wait." Previously, I was the one who endlessly waited for Liu Ruyan to return home, but now let him be in my shoes and experience everything for himself. "Exactly a month has passed. When will you finally sign the divorce papers?" Liu Ruyan's face immediately darkened. "Are you serious about a divorce? Yi Fan, we've been together for so many years. Are you really that desperate to ruin everything? I'm just asking you to give me a chance to correct my mistakes and win your love again. I swear that in the future, I will not have any affairs or connections on the side. Tell me, is it really that hard?" Although I knew perfectly well that Liu Ruyan wouldn't refuse so easily. It still irritated me to no end to listening to this nonsense from his lips over and over again. Just the return of Liu Ruyan into my life. It evoked in me only a dull disgust. "Stop wasting time on empty words. I've already said it 1,000 times. It's over between us. Whatever you say now, it won't change my decision." "Are you really ready to give up so easily?" Liu Ruyan looked at me with confusion. "How can you? Why does it have to end this way?" And I was extremely calm, remembering all the years we lived together. "Don't you know my character? I guess I've just been putting up with this circus for too long. I used to sincerely believe that I would spend my entire life with Liu Ruyan until old age. That is why I forgave his terrible actions again and again, allowing myself to be wounded in the very heart, choosing silent patience time after time. But now, looking back on the path I've traveled, I realize 5 whole years have passed and I've had enough. Liu Ruyan is one of those people with whom it is simply impossible to build a harmonious life for many years. Perhaps deep down, he truly did sincerely want to create a strong family. But as soon as he achieved stability, his nature immediately demanded new entertainment on the side. Now there was a dull despair in Liu Ruyan's gaze. He had always been sure that he knew me inside and out. This is exactly how he is used to perceiving our life. As if in any situation, no matter how angry I am, I will still forgive him in the end. It was this blind confidence that made him absolutely fearless for so many years. He never really cared about my true feelings and pain. But now my words finally made him understand. The old love is no more. I only want one thing, a divorce, and I am ready to break this relationship as easily as I once entered into marriage. And I will never regret my decision. My opinion is unchanged. Forgive me, Yi Fan, he whispered. I had already turned away, preparing to leave, when suddenly Liu Ruyan quickly stepped towards me. And he hugged me tightly from behind, holding his breath. "Forgive me, my dear, I should have protected you. I promise there will be no more Zhang Yida in my life. I'll make him quit tomorrow. Just don't leave, I beg you." I remained silent, slowly and coldly unclenching his fingers. It was far from the first time I'd heard such promises. When he'd first brought Zhang Yidu in disguised as an assistant, I was immediately wary. After all, he was a stranger. But then Liu Ruyan just laughed, hugging me. "Darling, you're just jealous. If you're upset, I'll hire a female assistant. You're my legal husband, after all. No one will ever be able to replace you in my heart. We've been together for so many years, and I appreciate that we always tell each other the truth." In fact, not only did he not distance himself from him, but he continued everything as before. Moreover, one day he openly invited Zhang Yidu to our wedding anniversary. He then stated that he considered Zhang Yidu to be a strong and decent guy who supposedly had nothing bad in his thoughts. and he tried to portray me as a petty hysteric, making scenes over trifles. It was at that very moment that something inside me finally broke and died of disappointment. All his vows and promises turned out to be an empty shell of sound. Apart from the heavy, bitter disappointment in my gaze, I had nothing left for him. It seems that it was my long silence and habit of giving in that gave him a free hand. Their secret contacts with Zhang Yida became increasingly intimate and unceremonious, at times reaching completely inappropriate public touching and tenderness. My heart, day after day, was inexorably sinking into the icy abyss of despair. I tried to appeal to his conscience and explain that the whole office was already looking askance at their behavior. All these hanky-panky things happened right behind my back, becoming public knowledge. But any attempts I made to talk were met with only irritation and disdain from Liu Ruyan. "You know I can't stand this stupid job," he waved it off. "Finding a truly competent assistant with whom I won't be bored is a huge rarity. Besides, don't forget who owns this company. I have every right to do as I want." For the sake of preserving the fragile peace in the family, I then again decided to remain silent and swallow the insult. Suppressing my own emotions for the sake of his whims was my biggest mistake. But on that memorable day, Zhang Yida's behavior crossed all conceivable boundaries. I was urgently called into the office because Liu Ruyan had started a public showdown again. "Why do you always pick on him over trifles?" he snapped at me. "He's a newbie just getting used to the company, and mistakes are natural. Why should I turn a blind eye to this?" I couldn't resist replying. "His direct responsibility is to help management and not to harm work processes due to his incompetence. The whole department is already in a frenzy because of his mistakes, and Liu Ruyan is still trying to protect his reputation." "And what are you suggesting? Throw him out into the street?" Liu Ruyan exploded. Before I could even utter a word, Zhang Yida immediately and demonstratively played the card of insulted innocence. "Forgive me, Mr. E, I can see perfectly well that you can't stand me. Perhaps it would be better if I wrote a letter of resignation of my own free will. Just please don't fight with CEO Liu over me," he said with feigned pity. And at that moment, the frightened and agitated Liu Ruyan immediately rushed to console his favorite. "You still dare point your finger at me and accuse me of being callous, as if I were forcing a person to die. Getting to an unfamiliar city on your own for a newcomer like him is already a challenge, but is it my fault? Why is it that in your eyes I have no humanity or sympathy left for him at all?" In the end, since he was so worried about his protege, he left with Zhang Yida, leaving me alone. This issue remained unresolved between us, as there had been many similar slippery precedents in the past. That is why I no longer believed a single iota of his word or justification. We no longer need to pretend and beg for forgiveness from heaven. This stage is irrevocably past. Well, let it be so, because I have long heard about Liu Ruyan's blind and selective justice. At this moment, Liu Ruyan's face slowly but surely lost its last color, becoming completely pale. There wasn't a single drop of living blood on her cheeks, and her voice itself trembled desperately and finely from the overwhelming horror. "Are you really determined to divorce me?" he shouted. I silently looked at his eyes, reddened from tears, feeling inside only absolute emptiness and indifference. "Yes, that's right," I replied coldly. "I've already hired a lawyer who will prepare all the divorce papers shortly. All that is required of you is the least just sign in the required fields." Having said these words, I turned around abruptly, leaving my husband behind, until Liu Ruyan behind me finally broke into heart-rending tears. I didn't even turn around, making an irrevocable decision that would forever determine the fate of both of us. Late that night, a long file of messages from Liu Ruyan arrived on my phone, which he, however, immediately began to frantically delete and recall. But the contents of the correspondence and the voice excerpts looked so pathetic and unconvincing that they only evoked a wry smile. Reading through these justifications, which were completely at odds with reality, I even stopped understanding what exactly he was trying to achieve. Did he really seriously expect to soften my heart with such cheap, childish manipulations? Although from screenshots of old chats it was obvious that at some point he really did value what he had. But now all this ostentatious care was worth exactly a penny on a market day. Even an innocent child would not have staged such ridiculous performances for the dubious sake of saving a marriage. Following the text file, he bombarded me with dozens of old archival photographs. They captured our entire past life, divided into time periods and memorable dates. Vacation trips, our wedding days, and even carefree photos right after graduating from university. As I scrolled through the gallery, I was involuntarily drawn into difficult memories. My belief in that bright feeling turned out to be naive. It turns out that there really was true love between us at one time. Once upon a time, he knew how to be gentle, affectionate, and defenseless, just like a little girl. He could sit comfortably on my lap, fool around, and play without fear of judgment. I especially vividly remember one of my past birthdays, when he tried to prepare a festive table with his own hands, placing strange dishes of unusual colors everywhere. Whatever the case, these were truly wonderful memories from our shared past. But the only desperate pity is that not a trace remains of this bright past. After remaining silent for a while and weighing the pros and cons, I made my final decision. And he began to methodically delete these photos one by one, realizing that the breakup could not be left in the semi-darkness of secrecy. Holding on to the ghosts of the past is a waste of precious time. All that remained was to wait for the lawyer to send the final version of the divorce agreement. Soon I received a call from my lawyer. All the documents were completely ready for signing. "I came straight to your company to finally talk in person," Liu Ruyan said quietly into the phone, but I just listened silently. After a long pause, I silently hung up and looked down at the sheets of paper in front of me. Respecting my strict demands, the lawyer prudently indicated me as the party voluntarily leaving all joint property. I didn't need absolutely anything from this wealth. Let this remain the final point and a pure symbol of our once strong love. I confidently picked up the pen and with a sweeping motion wrote my full name on the paper. At that very moment, all the key scenes of my life flashed before my mind's eye. The very first chance meeting, timid hugs when parting. The first kiss and the realization that I was now voluntarily giving up the right to speak on her behalf and share a roof with her. She once scolded me for being too simple and naive, and even before her mother became seriously ill, I sincerely promised her that I would love her all my life. A single tear fell onto the paper as I put the final period. The ink dried, sealing inside all the memories of the past. I decided to keep only the bright moments and throw all the pain and grievances out of my head. There is no way back and there is nowhere to go. This bridge was burned. Everything comes to an end. Wiping my eyes and gathering my strength, I moved on. After picking up the completed divorce agreement, I immediately headed to Liu Ruyan's company office. When I entered the building, I saw that Liu Ruyan looked very rich but incredibly tired. Time was running out, and I was in a hurry to end this once and for all. Taking a deep breath in front of the office door, I resolutely stepped inside. Liu Ruyan sat at her desk, looking as if she had been there for 3 days without sleep. Recently, he has become very thin and haggard. Almost nothing remains of the former gloss. He looked up at me with eyes reddened from tears, a glint of despair frozen on his pale face. A pitiful, crooked smile flickered across his lips. "You've come," I nodded silently in response. And he confidently placed the divorce papers on the table in front of him. "Take a look. If everything is okay, just sign." Liu Ruyan didn't even glance at the text, continuing to stare at me with a clouded gaze. "Are you really determined to see this through? Have you forgotten how much I love you?" I just lowered my head, feeling the pointlessness of this conversation. The decision had been made. There was no point in arguing. Perhaps he had loved me once, but that feeling had long since become distorted. "Just sign, no need to waste our time on empty dramas." Liu Ruyan opened the folder containing the agreement and could barely contain his sobs. But just as he was about to put pen to paper, the door swung open and his colleagues looked into the office. "Oh great, there you are," they rejoiced at my return. "This project gave us a headache. It's good that you're back in action." I nodded briefly to them, returned to the table, and urged Liu Ruyan to finish what he had started. "I'll sign," he exhaled through his tears, "but I have a condition. A condition without which I won't let you go so easily. Even though I agreed to leave home without a penny. Enough of your impudent demands, you've already gone too far." Liu Ruyan gritted his teeth. "That large-scale project is critically important for the company. If you agree to personally see it through to the end, I will sign the divorce papers. And I promise to disappear from your life forever, plus I guarantee you 10% of the total profit." I nodded thoughtfully at his suggestion. There was no reason to refuse a profitable deal. Besides, I really needed the money now, but as soon as I gave my consent. How Liu Ruyan immediately brought Zhang Yidu into the matter. "He will help you lead this project." I looked at him with a long, icy gaze, not believing my ears. A bitter, sardonic smile appeared on his lips. "Are you kidding me? Why the hell would he help me there?" But Liu Ruyan stood his ground, trying to arrange everything in his own way. He absolutely had to find a home for his favorite. "Don't worry, he'll just be carrying out orders. No one will bother you." Zhang Yida smiled at me guiltily, but I didn't care. I took the documents and left. In the following days, I immersed myself completely in working on the project, trying not to pay attention to those around me. However, Zhang Yida was hovering around with frightening enthusiasm, pretending to be a diligent newcomer. I didn't really care what exactly he was trying to achieve. I wasn't planning on getting into an open confrontation, but I wasn't planning on letting anything slide either. The long-awaited launch day soon arrived, and Liu Ruyan, wanting to boost the company's prestige, threw a large banquet, inviting influential figures from the business world. The invited guests approached Liu Ruyan one by one to congratulate him on his success. Wine flowed like a river, and guests raised their glasses to the company's prosperity. Liu Ruyan also drank along with everyone else, causing his face to quickly turn red from the alcohol. At one point, he cast a heavy, frowning glance at me from the crowd. Accepting praise from those around him, he suddenly shook his head and spoke loudly. "All credit goes to my irreplaceable husband." And he tried to beckon me. "Husband, come here, why are you standing there?" I just winced and demonstratively remained standing in place, noticing one strange detail. Zhang Yida, who was looming behind me just a couple of minutes ago, had disappeared somewhere. And soon I had a bad feeling about what this contract presentation would turn out to be. As soon as the official representatives of the key partner opened the project documentation, how their faces instantly contorted with shock and confusion. Confused, Liu Ruyan tried to find out what was going on, but the representatives were literally speechless with surprise. Casting a mocking glance at Liu Ruyan, the main partner hissed, "We're here to discuss business, not to admire the racy images of your personal life in a presentation." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Liu Ruyan was confused. "We're discussing serious cooperation, not my appearance." I walked closer in shock and looked into the folder. This project notebook layout was completely different, although the original was done by me from cover to cover. Logically, there couldn't have been any mistakes there, but the picture that opened on the first page plunged me into a chilling horror. The title page featured a large photograph of Liu Ruyan and Zhang Yida lying together in bed, openly and intimately. Before I had time to digest this nightmare, Zhang Yida, who was standing next to me, gave a mock gasp and pointed his finger at me with naive indignation. "Mr. Yi, could you really stoop to such dirty blackmail? I know very well that you want to divorce Mr. Liu, and you are fiercely jealous that he entrusted this project to me. But you can't pour such filth on the company just because of personal revenge. How can I look people in the eye after such a disgrace? He oversaw this project from start to finish, so who else could have foisted this abomination on us but him?" Zhang Yida seethed, shifting the blame. His sweet voice, trembling with false resentment, cut the ear. "Yi Fan, you've dedicated so many years to this company. How could you do such a mean thing? How could you even bring yourself to destroy all our work?" Liu Ruyan furiously attacked me. "Why are you creating this circus and trying to take revenge on me? What can you even talk about with a person who has completely lost his mind?" Zhang Yida continued to shed crocodile tears, assuring everyone that he had the purest working relationship with his boss. It's all because he was simply in a bad mood because of the divorce. He is obsessed with paranoia and a thirst to destroy everything that Mr. Liu has achieved. What an inhuman act. Such a wonderful person as Mr. Liu. Having dedicated himself to marrying such an ungrateful monster, Liu Ruyan was so stressed and hysterical that he could no longer stand on his feet. His face turned pale and he clutched his chest with his hands. And right before the eyes of the stunned audience, he collapsed to the floor. A scream arose in the hall and everyone rushed to help the director, who had lost consciousness. Zhang Yida rushed towards him with a wild cry, "Mr. Liu, wake up." And then he screamed at the security guards, pointing at me, "What are you standing there for? Throw this bastard out." The guests present looked at me with open contempt and condemnation. A person's true face is sometimes hidden behind a mask for years, and this is what long years of blind faith lead to. All these suspicions and omissions eventually resulted in a huge scandal. Although, in the opinion of the crowd, I still remain the main villain, who took revenge in such a sophisticated way. The guards rushed towards me to carry out the order of the hysterical assistant, but I only gave them an icy look from which they involuntarily froze in place, not daring to come closer. Zhang Yida continued to scream, "Are you deaf? Why are you hesitating? Get him out of the building." In this rotten world, shouting and lies sometimes mean more than cold facts and common sense. "You're so quick to blame all the dirt on me, aren't you?" I said coldly. Zhang Yida's eyes gleamed with fear, but he continued to play the victim. "Who is to blame here except you? Who else had access to the project files? I worked on them in exactly the same way. I calmly reached into my pocket for my phone. I too became incredibly curious. For this case, I installed a hidden video surveillance system right in my office in advance. Now we will clearly see who exactly was weaving the intrigues here. Zhang Yida turns deathly pale and convulsively tries to knock the phone out of my hands. I deftly dodge his clumsy attack. This whole cheap circus is already pretty boring. Even the most naive guests in the room changed their expressions, instantly realizing what was going on. A stunned Liu Ruyan, his eyes red from tears and anger, looked at Zhang Yidu. Zhang Yida's hand shook slightly in hysterics. President Liu, listen to me, but Liu Ruyan angrily pushes him away. The resounding sound of a slap echoes throughout the hall. Get this bastard out of my sight, Liu Ruyan screamed, and the guards immediately grabbed Zhang Yidu. The eyes of the scoundrel caught, red-handed, reveal wild anger and impotence. But you promised to protect me, he squeals, looking at the dumbfounded Liu Ruyan. I just chuckle quietly to myself, who in their right mind wouldn't have a camera in their own office. You are both good, I state the fact. Zhang Yida tries to break free, his face purple with rage. I'll finish you off, he yells at the guards. But they don't give him a chance to struggle, rudely dragging the troublemaker out. I just shake my head wearily, watching this farce. As they say, he dug his own hole and jumped into it with all his might. Liu Ruyan, overcome with guilt, looked up at me. Yi Fan, I'm sorry, it's all my fault, I shouldn't have disbelieved you. Enough apologies, I'll just send the final project files to the company email. And the divorce agreement, don't forget to sign it tomorrow at exactly 9 in the morning. I'll be waiting for you at the entrance to the registry office, and that's where our circus ends. I don't intend to waste any more time on empty talk. Liu Ruyan takes a deep breath, swallowing hard against the lump in her throat. After remaining silent for a couple of minutes, he finally nods resignedly in agreement. Finally, this nightmare is over, and he has officially agreed to a divorce. I immediately apply for an urgent leave of absence from the company, and Shen Yuchu, who somehow got wind of everything, immediately materializes next to me. Wait before you leave, let me see you out. I'll go with you, okay, he offers softly, but I shake my head. I'll be right back. Shen Yuchu looks me straight in the eyes for a long time. Giving in, he finally nods slowly. The flight back to my hometown is a bit foggy, but for the first time in so many years my soul feels light. I'm finally letting go of the heavy weight of this toxic marriage. And as soon as I saw the strict and reliable walls of the city registry office, how the long-awaited absolute peace reigned in my soul. It was as if heavy shackles that had been restricting my movements for years had been lifted from me. Liu Ruyan was already waiting for me at the porch, clutching the treasured divorce certificate in his trembling hands. His face looks pale and completely lost, and his gaze wanders somewhere in the void. For some reason, Liu Ruyan was dressed in a simple white dress. This is exactly the thing I gave him a long time ago in the first years of our relationship. Previously, he always criticized her for being too simple and flatly refused to wear her. Why the hell did he suddenly wear it today? Having hidden the documents, he suddenly impulsively and tenderly hugs me goodbye. Thank you and forgive me for everything. You deserve someone much better than me, he said as he left, turned around and walked quickly away. I silently watched him go, after which I also turned around and went my way. I guess I can come to terms with the fact that I suffered a crushing defeat in love. But I will never let a failed romance ruin my career and professional life. Perhaps this is the root of all the problems and the reason why Liu Ruyan eventually changed. Having achieved dizzying success in business, he gradually developed an inflated ego, and his character became unbearable. He desperately wanted to have total control over absolutely everything around him, both work processes and the people around him. That's why when the pliable Zhang Yida appeared on the horizon, Liu Ruyan easily succumbed to the temptation and betrayed me. Returning to my home team, I immediately felt happy, and Shen Yuchu began to actively help me coordinate various departments. He became fully involved in the company's work processes, supporting me at every step. During a celebratory dinner together, one of the colleagues jokingly expressed his suspicions, stating that Shen Yuchu was acting too confident and arrogant for a newbie. I had to intervene diplomatically to smooth things over, explaining that it was all about the successful completion of our common project. And adding with a smile, so this success is definitely worth celebrating, although I am only his humble assistant and am not allowed to say much. The words themselves sounded harmless, but colleagues immediately caught the double meaning in them. The atmosphere at the table instantly became tense, reminiscent of a scene of a jealous wife interrogating her husband. The noise around me increased sharply, and this commotion immediately gave me a headache. Are these young people always so straightforward and bold in their language? Fortunately, no one present wanted to develop this sensitive topic further, although it was clear that they had all agreed on this banquet in advance. One by one, the employees began to approach me with glasses, vying with each other to make toasts. It was awkward to refuse colleagues who were older or had a higher position, and I obediently accepted glass after glass. His head was spinning quickly from the alcohol he had drunk, and at that moment Shen Yuchu quietly appeared next to him. I just chuckled quietly to myself, trying to stay on my feet, and soon the banquet came to an end. After I went out for a short walk in the fresh air, I felt dizzy, and Shen Yuchu immediately held my shoulders and hugged me gently. A strange mixture of internal struggle and indecision was reflected in his eyes. "Brother Yifan, you've clearly had too much to drink," he said quietly, mumbling something unintelligible about what a stubborn and bad person I really am. "You've had too much to drink, come on, I'll take you," he whispered, trying to divert my embarrassed glances from my colleagues who were looking sideways at us. Shen Yuchu's breath was hot on my skin. He tried to lift me up, but at that moment I instinctively grabbed his hand, causing him to lose his balance. We both fell to the ground, accidentally getting too close to each other, after which Shen Yuchu jumped to his feet in panic, trying to recover. His face was flushed either from shame or from the drink. In the end, he somehow got me home, and when I woke up the next morning, the first thing I did was stare at the ceiling. The remnants of yesterday's alcoholic haze have long since cleared from my head. When I got out of bed, I still felt a slight residual dizziness. The sun's rays fell softly on the room, illuminating the morning silence. I instinctively reached out, just wanting to feel the phone on the nightstand. But instead of a gadget, my fingers unexpectedly touched something living and soft. Turning my head, I was surprised to find Shen Yuchu lying next to me. He was sleeping deeply, his eyelashes were wet from recent tears, and his body showed signs of a stormy night. I jumped up in bed in shock and felt the ground disappear from under my feet. At that moment, fragments of yesterday's events began to flash through my memory, and it finally dawned on me what had happened between us. Meanwhile, Shen Yuchu, feigning sleepiness, quietly stirred and opened his eyes. I froze, my heart holding my breath as I watched his first reaction. Noticing how the back of his head twitched nervously and his ears turned red, I involuntarily held back the smile that was trying to burst out. He slowly opened his eyelids, skillfully pretending that he had just woken up from sleep. "Brother Yifan, are you awake yet?" His slightly hoarse morning voice rang out. My face at that moment expressed a whole gamut of the most conflicting emotions. Did we really cross that line last night? Before I could find the words, Shen Yuchu gently interrupted me. With flushed cheeks, he admitted that he had voluntarily undressed and agreed to this intimacy. Although I already had a vague idea of what was going on, hearing it straight from his lips was unexpected. Shen Yuchu said this with such honesty that I had no doubt about the sincerity of his feelings. My heart was clawing at the heartstrings, and a burning bitterness from what had happened was spreading through my chest. "Sorry, I overdid it with alcohol yesterday," I began, but he immediately interrupted. "Everything's fine." Shen Yuchu's voice was absolutely confident and clear. "I told you that I did this of my own free will." He raised his shining eyes to me, and I froze under his direct gaze. "I've liked you for a long time, Yifan, so now you're mine." There was complete acceptance in his words. I wasn't going to resist because I wanted it myself. My eyes widened, trying desperately to recall some of the details of last night, but my head was blank. However, the fact that we ended up in the same bed remained undeniable. There was no point in denying the obvious reality spoke for itself. I sincerely believed that in a sober mind I was able to control my desires and resist temptations. But there was no point in giving in to illusions. In an unconscious state, the body lived by its own laws. Noticing my confusion, I preferred to simply remain silent for now. Shen Yuchu, seeing my state, acted carefully and delicately. "Are you angry, really angry with me?" he asked quietly, and I just shook my head wearily. "No, I'm not angry at all. I just feel a little uneasy. Everything is fine, don't worry." Before I could come to my senses, Shen Yuchu quickly got out of bed and started getting dressed. "Sit for a minute, I'll quickly make a light hangover soup." "No need to fuss," I tried to stop him, jumping up abruptly, but in my haste I completely forgot about the chair standing next to the bed. Losing my balance in the morning rush, I awkwardly tripped over my leg. Shen Yuchu gasped in fear as we both collapsed to the floor in a flurry of confusion. The unexpected fall caused us to collapse into a heap again. I immediately tried to get up, but Shen Yuchu was lying on the floor, terribly pale and breathing heavily. His lips trembled with pain. "Are you okay? Are you badly hurt?" I asked worriedly. I wanted to help him get up, but the sudden movement made him wince in sharp pain. Shen Yuchu was literally frozen by the sudden onset of excruciating pain. There was no time to waste. I immediately grabbed the phone and frantically called an ambulance. We were accompanied by doctors in the ambulance that arrived. Someone from the staff jokingly said, "Well, the boss managed to get injured himself and even end up in the hospital." I was in no mood for jokes or snide comments. I just held his hand tightly on the way, and as soon as I crossed the threshold of the hospital, I heard a familiar hysterical squeal. It was Zhang Yida, who was loudly and scandalously sorting things out with someone in the corridor. "What the hell are you doing?" he cried. "I know perfectly well that I shouldn't have interfered, but why are you now following Ren Liu? Do you really have the slightest right to scold my own sister like that?" Hearing the word sister from his lips, I froze in surprise and deep shock. It seemed like Liu Ruyan was in serious trouble again, but I didn't care about their dramas at all. Deciding to pretend I hadn't heard anything, I hurried after the medical staff into the room. But the impudent Zhang Yida instantly spotted me from the crowd with his gaze. "Yi Fan, stop." I stopped abruptly, frowning in disdain. Turning around, I gave him an icy, monotonous look. "What more do you want?" Zhang Yida gritted his teeth in anger. His eyes, wide with rage, were filled with open hostility. "You finally divorced Julian. So why do you keep ruining his life and hanging around? Can't you calm down? Where did this inadequate guy get so much audacity to assert his rights in front of his patron's ex-husband? Has this guy completely lost his mind due to his hysterics? I have no desire to waste time on your nonsense. Leave me alone," I snapped, turning away in disgust. But Zhang Yida didn't even think of calming down. "If it weren't for your brute attitude, would he have gone so far as to do this? Because of you, he lost our child, our love. It was your fault that the baby was never born." This absurd nonsense made me feel both angry and hysterical laughter at the same time. Listening to his hysteria, it sounded as if I had single-handedly destroyed their perfect marriage. Random onlookers in the hospital corridor immediately began to glance at me with obvious condemnation. It was not at all part of my plans to stage a public showdown. But since this impudent fellow had deliberately decided to stir up trouble, I wasn't going to remain silent. "Zhang Yida, when you were having an affair with Liu Ruyan, didn't you know he had a husband? Even if you didn't know at first, over the past 2 years you figured it all out perfectly. But instead of breaking up, you continued to indulge in the affair and got pregnant. And after this, you have the nerve to blame me. You destroyed someone else's family, got someone else's husband pregnant, and now you're playing the victim." Under the crossfire of the crowd's condemning gazes, Zhang Yida's face instantly twisted and he muttered something incoherent. "You don't understand anything. I really do love Ruyan." "Yeah, so you like being the jerk everyone despises." Justifying this nonsense made me sick, but those around me quickly put everything in its place. Modern society has long since learned to value common sense and not to justify those who destroy other people's families. And no matter how much you hide behind false feelings, meanness will remain meanness. These unprincipled types do nothing but sow chaos and ruin the lives of those around them. From such a public slap in the face, Zhang Yida's face completely turned white and he was speechless. I had neither the strength nor the desire to argue with him any further. After all, moralizing had never been my style. After all, Liu Ruyan, with his tough character and influence in business, had long had everyone under his thumb. As soon as he beckoned with his finger to such a pliable and mercantile guy, Zhang Yida immediately melted. So if you think about it, Zhang Yida in this story also turned out to be just a pawn and partly a victim of his own ambitions. I didn't feel like messing around with him any further. This whole dirty mess started only because this idiot himself showed up to assert his rights. The crowd of onlookers around me continued to grow, and I was about to quietly disappear, but Zhang Yida grabbed me with a death grip. "It's all your fault. If it weren't for your divorce, would they have made me move? I was just late." This outrageous, crystal-clear insolence almost made me burst into nervous laughter. It was simply impossible to parry this nonsense. As soon as I took a step towards the exit, the maddened Zhang Yida threw himself at my feet and screamed, "Don't you dare leave. Go immediately to Julian and force him to marry me. Don't take our child away or I'll give you no peace." I tried to shake him off, but he clung to my clothes with hysterical tenacity. Everything inside me froze with disgust, and my eyes were dazzled by his face, distorted with hysteria. Call him right now, or I will haunt you for the rest of my days. You're clearly crazy about your own fantasies, I said in response. Unable to bear this circus, I pushed him away with a well-aimed kick to the stomach. He finally loosened his grip, wincing in pain on the floor, and I warned him coldly of the consequences. If you come near me again, I'll call the police. Do you think Liu Ruyan would be happy about the prospect of delivering packages to her partner in a cell? And this was not an empty threat at all. Considering Liu Ruyan's current high status and position in business circles, he certainly didn't need any criminal scandals, and he would have sent this idiot away in a flash. Zhang Yida froze in place, his teeth clenched in impotent rage. Tears of resentment gushed from his reddened eyes, even hiding behind a child. He begged for one last favor, vowing never to come near again. But I didn't even give him a glance, silently turning around and walking away to the embarrassed whispers of the crowd. After stamping around a bit more, the onlookers also went about their business. Left alone, Zhang Yida stood frozen in the middle of the corridor. The only thing he feared more than losing his supposed child was losing his luxurious life thanks to Liu Ruyan's connections, since this opportunist had no plans to return to poverty after his well-fed fairy tale. Returning to the ward, I found Shen Yuchu already recovered. Noticing my tired face, the doctor sympathetically inquired about my well-being, but I merely waved him off with a forced smile and pulled out the lunch I'd bought on the way. Since our patient's arms are still weak, should I spoon-feed you myself? I sighed playfully, to which Shen Yuchu immediately and obediently sat up. Since the boss himself is offering, it would be a sin to refuse. This unexpected ease of communication made my heart feel a little warmer, although a slight awkwardness still hung in the air. Especially when Shen Yuchu smiled mischievously, playfully biting his chopsticks. Come on, eat or you'll go completely hungry, I threatened, pretending to be stern. He nodded quickly and began to eat diligently. I'm sorry that because of me you had to listen to all this nonsense in the hallway, he muttered guiltily. I felt a little ashamed in front of him. After all, he got involved in this story solely because of me. I silently continued to carefully feed him soup. Watching his embarrassed demeanor, I couldn't help but think that there was far more sincerity in this gentleness than in all the previous toxic dramas. I'm sorry, it's entirely my fault, I muttered embarrassedly. I carefully brought the chopsticks directly to Shen Yuchu's lips. He obediently opened his mouth, without making any unnecessary attempts to argue. You're looking at me so intently, do you really not like me at all? He suddenly asked quietly. Shen Yuchu's eyes visibly reddened from the emotions that were rising. This guy who was always so active and cheerful looked so vulnerable and offended for the first time. This look left me speechless for a second. My intuition told me that now was not the time to say anything that could hurt him even more. To offend a person in such a state would be the height of tactlessness. Noticing how hard I swallowed, Shen Yuchu blinked the moisture from his eyelashes slightly. But a moment later, a weak, guilty smile appeared on his lips. Everything is fine, the main thing is that I like you. This was my conscious choice, and I didn't intend to dump my problems on you. His smile looked so bright, but for some reason it only made my heart feel heavier. My own fingers began to tremble slightly from the overwhelming emotions. Enough talking, let's finish eating before everything gets completely cold. Shen Yuchu nodded obediently in response. But how can I now calm this frantic heartbeat? As prescribed by the attending physician, Shen Yuchu had to remain under observation, and I, of course, remained on duty in the ward with him. But the issue of overnight accommodation became quite acute. The hospital ward, of course, had a small couch for caring for the sick. But for my height, it was frankly short, and Shen Yuchu looked at it with a clear dose of doubt. Maybe you'll lie down here with me. I immediately shook my head categorically, without even listening to the end. What do you need for a patient to give up his seat for me? Sleeping in a hospital bed instead of a patient seemed the height of absurdity. And I didn't really feel like breaking every conceivable hospital rule. Suffering every day on an uncomfortable bed was also a bad idea. My back would have fallen off by the evening. Shen Yuchu bit his lip. Then how about you go home? I can handle it myself, come tomorrow afternoon. But I stubbornly shook my head again. I wasn't going to leave him alone in the hospital. Then Shen Yuchu moved slightly to the edge of the mattress. Well then, let's sleep together. His face turned red all the way to his ears at that moment. To say such a thing with a straight face is pure temptation. Although his gaze was extremely serious, as if he was proposing a completely rational solution. There was no joke or mockery in his eyes. No, that won't do. I licked my dry lips, embarrassed. It's your choice, either you go home to spend the night. Or you can sleep with me, I sighed in despair, realizing the normal, narrow couch definitely wasn't big enough for both of us. We had to crawl under the covers, close together. As soon as I moved, Shen Yuchu grinned slyly as if to say, hold on tight or you'll definitely collapse. I was desperately thirsty, but I decided to endure it. The bed was a bit cramped for two grown men after all. At some point, Shen Yuchu reached out and gently pulled me closer. Stop fidgeting, just sleep. And it wasn't about fatigue at all. His intonation sent shivers down my spine. I tried to lie still, terrified to death of touching his injured shoulder. But my tired body took over, and closer to the middle of the night, I finally fell asleep. Waking up at dawn, I felt a slight tickling on the tip of my nose. Blinking sleepily, I tried to brush it off, but the strange feeling didn't go away. Opening my eyes, I understood the reason. Shen Yuchu looked at me with undisguised tenderness. I jumped up in surprise, making some kind of ridiculous sound. Having rushed out of the room in a panic, I ran downstairs for breakfast and returned only half an hour later. Returning to the ward after my morning walk, I immediately found myself in a hospital bed. The days dragged on in silence, and we hardly spoke to each other. Rare dialogues arose only during meals. Shen Yuchu spent most of his time staring at his phone playing games. I was even surprised by his ability to stare at the screen for hours in complete solitude. What kind of weird electronic game was he always playing? But as the night approached, Shen Yuchu suddenly started talking about his injuries and hygiene. He felt the urge to take a shower, although one arm was still in a splint. It is clear that he could not wash himself in such a position, and offering help in such matters seemed extremely awkward to me. But Shen Yuchu only narrowed his eyes slyly. So, will you help me if I ask? I immediately and flatly rejected such a dubious undertaking. It's one thing to feed or serve things, and quite another to take a shower. While I sat there at a loss, not knowing where to look or what to answer, Shen Yuchu had already disappeared into the bathroom. Oh, why put me in this position? Hearing the sound of pouring water outside the door, I fearfully pressed my hand to my wildly beating heart. Mentally scolding myself for being too shy, I struggled to figure out how to behave. Soon, Shen Yuchu's voice came from the bathroom. I accidentally splashed water on my hospital gown. Bring me a clean uniform, please. At first, I didn't pay much attention to it, but as I approached the door with clothes in my hands, I froze. How could I hand him the things without going inside? Opening the door slightly, I held the stack forward. A graceful hand appeared from the semi-darkness, taking away the clothes, and I tried my best to look in the opposite direction. And yet for a second, my gaze involuntarily slid inside the half-open door. Come on, hurry up, why are you standing there? Shen Yuchu's teasing voice rang out. This attack instantly brought me to my senses, and I quickly shoved the things into my hand. A couple of minutes later, Shen Yuchu came out of the bathroom in a fresh hospital gown. The top buttons remained unbuttoned, revealing her bare chest. Can you help me button up? I'm not comfortable doing it myself, he asked with a smile. I began to button his collar very carefully, trying not to touch his skin. Noticing how nervous I was, Shen Yuchu decided to continue the game. Oh, brother Yi Fan, you are such a grown man, but you act shy like a boy. This joke left me completely at a loss, and I cast a reproachful glance at him. It's not about age at all. Come on, after everything that happened between us, what's there to be embarrassed about now? He persisted. His insolent grin frankly drove me crazy, and this teasing got to me more and more. I'm not angry at all, I'm just acting normal, I muttered, trying to move away. Shen Yuchu's face flushed slightly, but he stepped closer, blocking her path. You're really not angry, I think you are. My heart sank from the closeness, and a momentary sadness flashed in Shen Yuchu's eyes. He remembered that I had just gotten divorced and had a lot of unresolved problems. Before I could even utter a word of my own defense, Shen Yuchu suddenly closed the distance, rose up on his toes, and covered my lips with his own. I instinctively wanted to push him away, but afraid for his sore arm, I froze in place, not daring to move. His cool, soft lips kissed so tenderly, and his whisper penetrated straight into the soul. Brother Yi Fan, don't push me away anymore. I don't want to miss out on my happiness again. This sudden romantic attack made my head spin. The thick, intoxicating atmosphere around melted away the last remnants of common sense. And when Shen Yuchu said quietly and seriously, "Be my man, okay?" At that moment, I even forgot what reality I was in. Waking up from my stupor, I felt a strange mixture of trepidation and joy. Fortunately, this difficult and unsuccessful marriage, it couldn't kill my ability to love and open up to people forever. Time went on as usual, and Liu Ruyan never showed up again after the divorce. I gradually erased all memories of him from my memory. But my relationship with Shen Yuchu developed rapidly and brightly. Shen Yuchu is an amazingly kind and sincere girl who does not strive for empty fame at all. She silently surrounds me with care, sharing with me all my working days. With her, my life finally found the long-awaited peace and harmony. Next to her, I feel absolute peace of mind and freedom. Together, we discover stunning landscapes that I have never seen before, enjoying every moment of sincere and pure love. Meanwhile, while we are making plans for the future, Liu Ruyan sits all alone in his empty office. With a glassy gaze, he studied the documents scattered on the table. The bright rays of the sun fall on his face, but cannot dispel the darkness. The heavy silence of the office is interrupted by a timid knock. The secretary peers through the door. "Mr. Liu, we have found people with similar traits as you requested. We managed to find several people with a similar type." Liu Ruyan doesn't even raise his head, but the secretary still doesn't dare leave, carefully placing the folders with the dossier on the edge of the table. All the staff know how furious and dangerous the boss is. The previous assistant was fired for the slightest offense without explanation. A strong wind is raging outside the window, raising clouds of sand. But this terrible weather only reflects the desolation that is going on in his soul. Liu Ruyan doesn't even look at the papers he brought. He silently takes out a cigarette and lights it. Once upon a time, he couldn't stand tobacco smoke, but now smoking has become his constant companion. Lighting cigarette after cigarette, he desperately tries to drown out the oppressive boredom and melancholy. After the divorce, there was a huge, unfillable void in his chest. In the first weeks of wild despair, he didn't even try to bother Yi Fan, instead trying unsuccessfully to find anyone like him. Although those around him understood his condition perfectly well, no one could replace Yi Fan. He could not come to terms with the harsh reality of the final break, desperately trying to find a temporary replacement to drown out the pain with talk. But even when he found people with similar external features nearby, he did not feel the slightest affection for them. All this was done only to somehow kill the endlessly dragging time. Gradually, his routine completely broke down, and he began to sit in his office all night long. Even during his waking hours, his sanity was far beyond the pale. The number of cigarettes smoked per day quickly increased to 2 packs. Close friends tried to reason with him, but he flatly refused to listen to them. At times, he was visited by crazy thoughts. What if he dies? Would Yi Fan come to see him one last time? His friends, watching this self-destruction, seriously considered contacting Yi Fan. But Liu Ruyan only shook his head heavily, fully aware that he was solely to blame for everything. If it weren't for his own mistakes, the situation would never have reached such an end. People say that time can heal any wound. Exactly 1 year later, on the first day of the new year, Liu Ruyan stepped into Yi Fan's old apartment for the first time. Following his previous orders, the cleaning service continued to diligently maintain perfect order there. Everything lay in its place, untouched by even the slightest dust. The setting retained all the familiar traces of his presence, creating the illusion that Yi Fan had never left at all. Taking a broom in his hands, Liu Ruyan decided to walk through the rooms on his own. At that moment, the courier left some mail at the front door. At first, Liu Ruyan didn't even pay attention to him. But noticing the familiar handwriting on the envelope, his pupils sharply narrowed with a wave of emotions that ebbed away. The content of the letter was extremely brief, but that one line instantly made his legs give way. The elderly butler, noticing his condition at the threshold, hesitated for a long time to disturb the frozen figure. Only when Liu Ruyan regained his speech did he silently pick up the letter and the photo they had shared from the floor. Due to an unfortunate angle, the photo was shifted, and the butler, who was standing in the background behind the main character, accidentally ended up in the frame. In the photo, Yi Fang and Shen Yuchu were captured wearing matching couple outfits against the backdrop of a misty spring landscape and drizzling rain, radiating absolute happiness. The butler, who was well aware of the dramatic history of Liu Ruyan and Yi Fan's past relationship, sighed heavily. Looking at the photograph, he tensed up inside, but Liu Ruyan himself remained frighteningly calm on the outside. "He's doing great, this girl truly loves him and they'll get married soon," Liu Ruyan said quietly. The words sounded as if he was trying to convince not so much those around him, but himself. Yi Fan is finally happy, and there is no longer any room for interference in his life. After a whole year of loneliness and pain, he finally realized that Yi Fan was gone forever. Having lost his last strength, Liu Ruyan frantically clutched the edge of the table with his fingers, barely able to stay on his feet. He sank down onto the sofa and looked longingly at Yi Fan's face captured in the photograph. The lips tried to form a weak smile, but the muscles of the face seemed numb with grief. Unable to bear it, he covered his face with his palms, and his shoulders began to shake silently. The butler quietly closed the door and went out, leaving him alone in the empty room, where time seemed to stand still forever. At some point, he felt as if the front door opened and Yi Fan appeared on the threshold, illuminating everything with a soft smile. But as soon as the illusion dissipated, reality hit painfully on the remaining emptiness. The text in the received letter consisted of just a few lines: "Stop torturing yourself, start living anew, Happy New Year." A sincere wish that made my heart clench. After sitting like that for an unknown amount of time, Liu Ruyin took the pen with a trembling hand and wrote a short answer on the paper. "Happy New Year, Yi Fan," is the bitter end to this story.